The romantic stage seemed to split the world in two. On one side, a chaotic brawl. On the other, a somber confrontation. Why somber? Because Leo was slowly realizing that he and Isabella Vance wanted different things. Even though he'd made it this far, ready to reach out and pull her away from all this, everything had just circled back to the beginning. What would crashing this wedding even change? Isabella's face was close, her blue eyes unwavering. Leo, I'm not forcing you to make a decision. I just want to ask you how you feel about me. But I don't remember the past. You always have a way of figuring things out. Not this. What could I possibly do about this? Then leave, she said, pointing toward the door before leaning back in her chair, her face a silent mask. I'm putting the question to you, Leo countered. After all, you're the one with the memories. What do you think I felt for you all this time? You love me. That might make sense after the amnesia, but before? You've always loved me. Before the amnesia and after, Isabella said, her voice firm, her thin lips trembling almost imperceptibly. That seems a little far-fetched, Leo said, incredulous. Nothing I did before I lost my memory even hinted at love. Love is something you feel. You saying all this is just. It's blowing my mind, Leo exclaimed. He never thought he'd see the day Isabella Vance would be the one lecturing him on the topic of love. What the hell do you know about love? He thought. The way he remembered it, the key theme of his past with Isabella was escape. He was always trying to get away from her. And why would he run? Because he didn't like her, obviously. It wasn't just him. Everyone thought so. It was the only logical conclusion. Being around her was a constant state of discomfort, let alone working for her. The theme of escape even seemed to match the bizarre wedding decor. Whoever designed this stage had a sick sense of humor. A locomotive, kites, dandelions. It was like they were daring the bride to make a run for it. Look, I just thought this whole wedding seemed shady, so I came to stir things up, Leo said, getting to his feet. If you don't want to leave, that's fine. I'll go. You're still worried about me? Of course not. You'd better not be. The air between them wasn't exactly awkward, but it wasn't comfortable either. It felt like a real-life reunion between exes, hashing things out long after the breakup. Some things, it seemed, could only be said once you were no longer together. A sunny afternoon, meeting your ex in a field of flowers, shedding the roles of boyfriend and girlfriend to finally talk about the past. I don't know if I loved you back then, but I know that in that Apex Media conference room, you were driving me insane. And you wouldn't even come after me. You pushed me that far. Why would I chase you? If you had, I would have apologized. So it's still my fault for being so stubborn. You fell in love with me, stubbornness and all. When did I ever fall in love with you? You were moved when I finished telling my story. I was not. Then why were you secretly crying? Don't start rumors. Who was crying? Leo leaned back, a smile unconsciously spreading across his face as he thought back. It had been so long. He had to admit, after the amnesia, he had been moved. There was even a time when he'd imagined spending the rest of his life with her. But what was lost couldn't be recovered. Some people just drift apart. Well, if you're not leaving, I am, he said, standing up. My Uncle Frank is probably seeing red out there. If he brings out the propane tank, things are going to get out of hand. If you're not in a hurry, you could wait a little longer. Stay for what? I'm not married yet. The groom bolted. What kind of wedding is this? This is Boston. He couldn't escape even if he grew 8 wings, Isabella said. She stood, straightening her wedding dress and bouquet, and glanced at Leo's confused face. Life has to go on, even without you. Do you have to get married? Not necessarily, but can you offer me a better option? When Sebastian Cole was dragged back, tied up like a turkey, the brawl came to an abrupt halt. Frank Miller roared in disbelief. I got you a damn boat. Uncle Frank, I didn't even make it to the pier. Seeing this, a change flickered in Mr. Vance's eyes. Sebastian shouldn't have been caught. Not unless someone had anticipated his escape and made some off-the-books changes to the plan. Who? As if struck by a revelation, Mr. Vance turned to see his daughter, walking out alone, holding the train of her dress. In that moment, the handsome older man's expression was a complex tapestry of emotions. There's been blood, he announced suddenly. It's not a suitable day for a wedding. We'll postpone. Dad, let's do it today. Looking at his daughter's determined face, Mr. Vance took a deep breath and slowly lowered his head. Get the injured to the hospital. The wedding will proceed in 20 minutes. The estate's heavy bronze bell chimed, and the romantic, idyllic atmosphere returned. The sound of the fountain couldn't drown out the soaring melody of the piano. Sebastian stood at one end of the stage, bouquet in hand, a mess of snot and tears. At the other end of the aisle, the woman with blue eyes emerged from a floral archway. Isabella was made for a Western-style wedding dress. Her striking, almost foreign features were so defined that the pure, unadorned white only amplified her natural advantages. Due to recent events, the ceremony had been drastically shortened. Walk toward each other and exchange your bouquets, a symbol of the exchange of your hearts. Down in the crowd, Frank Miller was losing his mind. The bow-tied bandage on his head made him look like a thug-life Mickey Mouse. "Where's my son?" When Leo finally appeared, Frank frantically waved him over. "Son, what's the word? You want me to light him up?" Just watch for a minute, Dad." Leo's face was a blank canvas. He had prepared himself for this a long, long time ago. From a moment he had accepted Peyton into his life, he knew that he and Isabella were destined for different paths. If he could walk his, then of course she could walk hers. So there was no great regret. He had proposed one future, and she hadn't accepted it. Fine. He wished her the best. He wasn't a child who cried when he couldn't have candy. Even as memories of their time together post-amnesia flickered through his mind, he felt no surge of emotion. If she could live the life she chose, that was a good thing, no matter what. "Son, why are you crying?" "The wind." "Son, there's no wind today. Can you just be quiet for a minute?" "Son, grief is the price of love." Love? Leo had never dared to admit he loved Isabella. He was ashamed to. Liking someone meant appreciating their best qualities, but loving them meant accepting them at their lowest. If you couldn't accept their flaws, how could you claim to love them? He couldn't accept anyone at their lowest, so he would never admit to the existence of love. The reason they'd ended up here today. Leo didn't think it was all Isabella's fault. Her personality was what it was. If you couldn't accept it, who was there to blame? "I don't love her, do I?" You can tell the difference between loving someone and not. "I think you love her." To this day, he still didn't understand Frank's motive for saying that. Was it to help his son see the truth in his own heart? Or was it just the battle-hungry old brawler itching for another fight, looking for an excuse to knock out Mr. Cole's dentures? But the words hit him. He lifted his head and looked at Isabella, far across the stage. He squinted, trying to find her blue eyes through a haze of severed kite strings and wind-tossed dandelion seeds. She was crying, too, because grief is the price of love. Leo fell to his knees, his head about to explode. "I am Leo Miller. I've been through this, getting my memory back, twice before, so the sensation isn't unfamiliar. What is unfamiliar is the violent wave of emotion surging through this unsealed memory. I've never experienced anything like it. The feelings are a tidal wave, threatening to overwhelm my senses. I try to speak to ask for help, but I can't make out the figures in front of me. Maybe it's the time compression. My memories of Isabella are continuous, a solid year of being together day in and day out. And it all happened just last year. The density of this lost time is so high that, for a second, I think the meme about brain overload has become my reality. I've fallen into an ocean of blue. It's a rainy day. My muscles ache with a weariness that seems endless. I've lost track of how many days in a row I've worked. The job at the Cypress Lounge is far from the easy gig I imagined. At its core, it's sales, and with sales comes the pressure of quotas. Silas calls the lounge the Ivy League of host clubs, meaning it's at the top of the industry. Not a single host here is without experience, except for me. As the exception, the one who was hired on a whim, I have to prove I belong. If I don't, I'll be crushed by the competition, and not even Silas will be able to save me. That's just how it works. So, from the day I started, I haven't taken a single day off. The hosts here all have deep networks of clients. They can move from one place to another, and their regulars will follow. The clients are loyal to the person, not the building. Competing against these veterans is bleeding me dry. You think it's easy to build a client base and get them to happily drop cash on you? Money is hard to earn. Life is hard. I sit helplessly under a paper lantern, trying to catch a moment's breath. I feel everyone's eyes on me. Sometimes I wish the ground would just swallow me whole. This month, I've worked harder than anyone. They all affectionately call me the sales king. It's mockery, of course. I have the longest hours, and I take the clients no one else wants. No one wants to be looked down on, and neither do I. But what choice do I have? I think about sneaking over to Silas's little shrine to pray, but praying to gods is useless. You have to rely on yourself. I don't believe in gods. Then my God arrived. The first time I saw the woman with blue eyes, I'll admit, I was a little intimidated. She was so lofty, just standing there. She projected an aura that made her unapproachable. I've seen plenty of women at the lounge, many who acted high and mighty, but their status always needed props. The casually dropped car keys on the table, the flash of a Patek Philippe, the mention of their annual income. This woman had nothing on her that screamed its value. She just stood there, and she was above it all. This was the hardest type of client to handle. When a person doesn't need to rely on man-made brand value to find their place in society, it means they have nothing to prove. There's no angle, no way in. The easiest way to get close to someone is to give them an opening to show off. You get information while stroking their ego. I couldn't handle a woman like this. I knew it, so I decided I didn't want her business. Easy enough. I just had to make her look down on me. Breaking from my usual routine, I let a cocky, self-important look flash in my eyes. My words were flippant and casual. Acting like a punk in front of the boss is never a good idea. I never expected her to actually take an interest in me. What a strange taste she had. I had no choice but to take her on, and serving her was surprisingly easy. A little chat, some stupid jokes, and she was happy. Seeing a smile on that icy face, I actually felt a pang of guilt. Maybe I should give her the employee discount. Just before she left, she asked me why I did this job. For something like that, those of us in this line of work have countless canned responses ready to go. I had my usual script, too. My spiel was always relatively honest, delivered with a cynical, joking tone. A gambling dad, a sick mom, a girlfriend who needs constant support, and a family that would fall apart without me. Thank God for this job. Otherwise, I'd have hung myself by now. Everyone knows the era of sob stories is over. You say things like that to lighten the mood. I thought anyone who'd ever been on the internet would get it. I was used to it, anyway. Is that true? Of course. Then why does it sound like you're joking? Her question threw me. I didn't know how to respond. I just scratched my head and mumbled, making a joke about it is better than looking miserable, right? It's not funny. The woman's face was devoid of smile. Man, she's hard to please, I thought. But then she said, you have such dark circles under your eyes. Do you work long hours? Pretty long. How much do they dock your pay for taking a day off? I'll cover it. There's no need for that, miss. I'll be back the day after tomorrow. I need you to be in top form when you serve me. Roger that. I thought she was joking, right up until I saw her load $30,000 onto a club card. Nothing much happened that day. I just looked up at the sky and thought, I've met a soft-hearted god. She was perfect in every way, except my usual lines didn't work on her. I was used to joking about my hardships. She said it wasn't funny at all. This woman was truly beautiful. Could someone so perfect really exist? There were many times I didn't even dare to look her in the eyes. I've always been confident. If she had yelled at me, I would have shot right back. If she'd been sarcastic, I would have responded with something even cruder. But all she did was stand there, looking at you with those emotionless eyes, and pay all your bills. It was a complete domination, on a different level. We were destined to exist on separate planes. That truth was branded into my heart from our first meeting. If it weren't for the Cypress Lounge, we probably would have never exchanged a single word in our entire lives. I wasn't looking down on myself. Respecting objective reality is the truest form of self-respect. She was incredibly generous. With her patronage alone, she single-handedly salvaged my reputation among the other hosts. If the tide of exclusion had turned against me, I would have faced endless workplace bullying. So I was grateful to her, and I wanted to help her in some way. I knew that for someone of her stature, my help would be limited, but I could still offer something. Ms. Vance, have you ever noticed that you don't really live like a person? I asked one day, not even looking up as I uncorked a bottle of wine at her table. Our conversations were usually pretty relaxed. I thought we could handle a joke like that. Apparently, I was wrong. Who do I talk to about a complaint? You can file a complaint at the front desk. But what for? You insulted me. No, Ms. Vance, I'm being serious. Haven't you noticed you give off too much of a divine aura? I was starting to panic. Meaning I have no humanity? You're just insulting me in new and creative ways. See, that's it. A classic sign of too much divinity. Oh, Isabella stood up and walked away. She went straight to the front desk and filed a complaint. I tearfully paid the $100 fine. Even though she filed a complaint, I decided to press on. I chased her out to the parking garage. Ms. Vance, I really think you have too much of that God vibe going on. Are you ever going to stop? See, this is what I mean. It's so inhuman. If you thought it was a joke, you should have laughed and shot a joke back. If you thought it was offensive, you should have yelled at me. Why would I yell? Because you were annoyed. Otherwise, why file a complaint? I wasn't annoyed. Insults and complaints. Aren't those just the rules of the lounge? Ms. Vance, I just learned a term called emotional disregard. Did you go through some kind of major? Shut up. We're no longer in the lounge. There's no need for us to speak anymore. Isabella turned and walked away, her face a blank slate. I smiled wryly. It was the first time I'd ever met such a difficult client, but I still hoped to find a way to keep her coming back. Experience had taught me that the relationship with a client was, at its core, a relationship between a man and a woman. The first few visits might be driven by the thrill of novelty, but to build a long-term client, you needed more. You needed the iron box theory. Everyone has an iron box in their heart, filled with their past, their experiences, their dreams, and their secrets. In most relationships, people instinctively open their boxes to show each other. They talk all night, sharing traumas, life-changing events, grand ambitions. That night of sharing is the peak of the relationship's intensity. After that, it fades. So, to build a lasting, intimate connection with someone, you can't treat the contents of your iron box as collateral for affection. Instead, you keep your box shut while slowly, carefully opening theirs. As for how to make someone fall in love with you while your own box remains locked, well, Leo Miller knew how to do that. But you didn't need to go that far with a client. That's a lesson for another time. Ms. Vance came back to the lounge. Ms. Vance, can you feel sadness? It's been a long time since I've had that emotion. Then why do you still come here? I'm tired. Maybe you should try feeling sad for a change. How about we play a game? Okay, listen to a sad song. We'll test your capacity for empathy. I dimmed the lights and placed a pair of headphones over her ears. A few minutes later, Isabella took them off, her expression unchanged. What song is that? North of Nowhere. Sounds like a funeral dirge. If I can make it before dark, I have to forget your eyes. You didn't feel any sadness from it. I was genuinely puzzled. That song always made me feel melancholic. I didn't realize at the time that it was because of my trip to that small town. The memory of Cinder Creek was all it took for the song to feel heartbreaking. No, Isabella shook her head. After a moment, she looked up at the ceiling. I might not be here tomorrow, busy with work. How about the day after? Probably not then either. It hit me then. The novelty had worn off. Ms. Vance, you're a good person. At least you told me you weren't coming back. Do other people not say anything? Rarely. Most people just disappear, and you never know when you'll see them again. You seem a little sad. Isabella leaned forward, studying my face. Meetings and partings. Sadness is inevitable. Why don't I feel sad? Ms. Vance, do you want the truth or a lie? The truth, of course, because you don't have feelings for anything, and you have feelings for everything. I nodded. I named my toy soldiers when I was a kid. When I found them in a box years later, I actually cried and told them, "It's been a long time, boys." You're a very sentimental person. Men like to store a piece of their soul in cold, inanimate objects. I gave up on my plan to save Isabella Vance. On our last night together, I decided to just be myself. What's that saying? If we never meet again, please remember me as I was when you last saw me. If this was it, who wouldn't want to leave a good impression? So that night, I didn't try to keep my iron box locked. I answered her questions honestly. You drink yourself half to death to send money to your girlfriend, just helping her out. A person needs a sense of self. But this is myself, because this is what I want to do. The word love comes with self-risk and sacrifice. That's why love is so heavy. Devotion has to come second to the self. This was a callback to a story Isabella had told. I was mostly just trying to sound profound. Love isn't easy. Sometimes love and the self are in direct conflict. You could say that a man's greatest triumphs and failures both stem from his need to look cool. I figured this was our last meeting. What was the harm in building a good persona? I never expected that I would be so spectacularly kept. It was completely baffling. I had no idea what was going on in this Ms. Vance's head. I was actually pretty against the idea of being a sugar baby. The term itself sounds sleazy. Wouldn't she be whipping me with a riding crop every day? I had zero experience in the boy toy department, so I resisted at first. But when I found out it was $30,000 a month, I immediately started wondering if I should go online and buy some stage blood. Oh my God, please whip me a few more times. Otherwise, I'll feel like I'm not earning this money. I had been working here for many days now and was starting to get a better handle on the blue-eyed lady's temperament. She was self-centered, demanding, had a terrible temper, and was incredibly stubborn. But none of that changed my image of her. She was a god. Seriously, what kind of deals did other boy toys get? They had to service some old, yellow-toothed rich woman dripping in jewels, sleeping with them every night. At best, they got yelled at. At worst, they got roughed up. And me? A beautiful woman was paying me 30 grand a month to do housework. If I went back to the lounge and told them, no one would believe me. I was grateful. Anyone who dare make my god shed a tear would get a taste of a Leo Miller beatdown. To be honest, I was a little anxious. I always felt like I should be doing more because I was afraid the money would just stop coming. I tried my damnedest to please her, but I couldn't seem to get it right. It was exhausting, but that was fine. The pay should be proportional to the difficulty of the job. Then, one day, my chance finally came. Ms. Vance texted me that she wasn't coming home for dinner. She was going out for drinks. I had to prove myself, I casually found out which bar she was at, staked it out, and prepared to give her a surprise. When I saw her stumbling out, I immediately rushed over to support her. She was incredibly surprised to see me. She even mistook me for her old family butler. That was the day I learned Ms. Vance got terribly carsick. It was also the day I told her, if I were 20, I'd tell you that you're not allowed to drink, and that I'll solve all your problems for you. Ms. Vance asked me why I'd be so capable in 2 years. I told her a fortune teller said my luck would turn when I was 20. I was lying, of course. I'd never seen a fortune teller in my life. It was just some bullshit I made up on the spot. Being a boy toy requires acting. The standard is to keep the boss happy. You think acting is easy? You try it. I was essentially earning my keep by playing a role, the diligent, dedicated boy toy. You pay, I perform. That's what you call fair. That night, I carried her home on my back. She said a lot of things. Like, Leo, are you acting? Of course not, boss. What you see is what you get. You're lying. Let's see how long you can keep it up. Were you hurt in a past relationship? Cheated on by some scumbag? My entire family acts. You know when you watch a family drama and it feels fake? I don't feel that because my family's daily life could be put on TV without any changes. Ms. Vance was mumbling drowsily on my back. I felt a dampness on my shirt. At first, I thought she'd thrown up, but there was no unpleasant smell. Then I felt her hand brush against her eyes. Are you crying? Ms. Vance, I'm not crying. You're pretty tough. Only a psychopath would keep poking at a wound when the boss clearly didn't want it touched. Ms. Vance tried her best to hide the catch in her voice. Her hands rested on my shoulders as she whispered, do you think a person can act forever? No way. It's too tiring. That was the honest truth. You think I wanted to be a human taxi right now? I wanted to be at a land center, playing a couple of games. Then can you act forever? I can. The boss's question was like a thunderclap in my ears. This was work time. What was I doing speaking my mind? When the boss asks if you're willing to keep doing the job, you're supposed to say, your humble servant, will go through fire and water for Ms. Vance for generations to come. So you are acting, she sneered, struggling to get off my back. I knew if I didn't say something, this wouldn't end well. Ms. Vance, even if I'm acting, I know how to be grateful. I remember your kindness. My kindness? Of course. My God, I've never met a woman on your level in my entire life. It feels like we're from two different worlds. We're standing on the same earth, but it feels like two different worlds. With your mixed race features, you look like you stepped out of a painting. Your whole aura, it's intimidating. Just my looks? Your inner qualities are just. I'm cold, inhuman, strict. But you're good to me. I mean that sincerely. And that part was true. I would always remember her kindness. Whatever. It's all an act anyway. In a little while, who's going to remember these lines? Ms. Vance seemed to have a lot of experience with this. I wondered how many times her family had put on a show for her. She moved on to the next question. Do you think forgetting someone starts with their appearance or their personality? It starts with their flaws, I said, nodding seriously. I don't believe you, she retorted, as always. If you've ever had an ex, you'd agree with me. Forgetting someone always starts with their flaws. Otherwise, why do so many people get nostalgic about their exes? So if you forget me, will you forget my flaws too? Of course. I was walking down the street, flanked by flickering streetlights. One of them was broken, buzzing erratically. Damn city maintenance. The little street was empty. I couldn't see a single other person. I couldn't see Ms. Vance's face either because she was on my back. I tried to turn my head to meet the face resting on my shoulder. I accidentally bumped her forehead, startling her out of her drowsiness. Her two blue eyes blinked open. I said, don't worry, boss. In my heart, there's only your good side, never your bad. I know how to be grateful. And what if you forget me? I won't forget you. I said with absolute certainty. Because even if I did, it really would start with the flaws. And besides, how could I possibly forget the Ms. Vance who saved me from the abyss? Ms. Vance would always be my God, unreachable, yet she had bestowed a miracle upon me, even if she had 1,000 flaws. Gods don't have flaws. I will always remember my God's kindness, never her faults. A wedding doesn't stop just because someone closes their eyes. At this moment, only a short walk down the aisle remained before the ceremony was complete. It's almost dark. Let's get this over with, mister. Cole grumbled, his own reputation be damned. He yelled at the dawdling Sebastian on stage. Sebastian was currently half kneeling, wailing toward the audience like his father had just died. Latifah, wah! In the audience, Latifah was being held back, helplessly wiping away her own tears. I have a request. Sebastian shouted. Can you change the music for a final farewell? What's with all the requests? What do you think this is, a flea market? Mister. Cole was furious. He glanced over at Frank Miller, then slapped himself on the forehead. Right? Why not? We've already had a brawl. A farewell concert isn't that much a stretch. Play it for him. I want to hear North of Nowhere. Permission granted, Sebastian knelt on the stage and sang softly along with the melody. You, in the bright desert sun, where blizzards rage, I, in the cold Boston night, where spring never fades. The whole thing looked like a complete farce. Sebastian's melodramatic performance made many in the audience chuckle. Only Isabella wasn't laughing. When two people are immersed in their own mental worlds, reliving the same memory from different perspectives, does that count as time travel? Isabella still didn't know. To this day, she had no idea why Leo thought that song was a test of empathy. If I can make it before dark, I have to forget your eyes. Tears suddenly streamed down Isabella's face. I used to want to watch the sunrise in your eyes. But now, before it gets dark, I have to forget your eyes. Ahem, I have something to say. Frank Miller decided he couldn't stay quiet any longer. If this wedding actually happened in front of him, he might as well give up on being a father. The shame would be too much. Daughter-in-law, your mother-in-law wants to know if you're coming home for dinner tonight. Frank yelled toward the stage, throwing all decorum to the wind. He wasn't even lying. Diane had just texted him, asking if the wedding was over and if Leo was coming back to Riverbend for dinner. Frank's nonsensical outburst was, of course, met with silence. People just stared at him like he was an idiot. Only one person stood up to respond. Frank, I'm getting a bit hungry. You got anything you can cook up for us right here? Are you trying to get smart with me, Vance? I mean, you brought the stuff? The cooking tools. I'm not a chef. What tools would I have? Frank scratched his head, confused. It was only when Mr. Vance straightened his collar and leaned in close that he understood. Where's your stuff? What stuff? The tank. What other stuff would you have? In the truck. I was saving it for your house. Why would you bring a propane tank to my house? Well, I was afraid crashing the wedding on your turf might not work out. Worst case scenario, I was going to blow up your family crypt as a threat. Frank Miller, you son of a bitch. Mr. Vance didn't have time to curse him out properly. He whispered urgently in his ear, do it here. I've already cleared it. The plan today was always to make as big a scene as possible. You should have said so. I was trying to be polite first. Frank shoved Mr. Vance aside and stormed toward the semi-truck. Mr. Vance scurried after him, muttering, calculate it properly. Don't blow up any of my family. I only brought a 15-kilo tank. In an open space like this, it won't do much. How much power does a 15-kilo tank have? In theory, it's equivalent to about 320 pounds of TNT. But that's just in theory. Get to me straight. 3,000 grenades. Wait, on second thought, maybe don't do it. Mr. Vance started pulling at him, trying to avert disaster. Nope. Now that you've mentioned it, my hands are getting itchy. Just as the two men were wrestling with Mr. Vance desperately trying to stop Frank from grabbing the propane tank, Leo silently opened his eyes, like someone waking from a deep sleep. Without a word, he rose from his chair and started walking toward the stage. All Isabella wanted was an answer. A simple, pure answer. This half-assed wedding, this chaotic mess of a scene, none of it mattered. The question she had asked was, do you also think our past is just a dark chapter to be forgotten? If Leo thought it was, it would prove that he had never, ever accepted all of her. It came back to the same thing. Loving someone means accepting them at their lowest. So the question was, at its core, the same one asked by countless broken-hearted lovers. Did you ever really love me? The moment Leo opened his eyes and walked toward her, she dropped the bouquet. Waving for the flower girl to help her down from the stage, she didn't look at anyone else. She walked straight for Leo. She didn't need anything else now. Just an answer. She had prepared herself. Whatever the answer was, she wouldn't show any emotion. Though, in her heart, she already knew. She was well aware of the kind of person she was. Lacking humanity, emotionally detached, strict, extreme. Any label you put on her was probably correct. Why else would Leo have tried to run away from her, time and time again? Everything, just like this wedding, was a desperate attempt. So no matter what the answer was, she wouldn't leave with him. She would go back to Riverbend, resolute, and continue her life alone. Do you remember? I remember. How will you remember me? With a smile. Or in silence, Leo said quietly, and then, after a beat, he finished the line from the song. Do you think you're funny? Let's go. I'm not going with you. Oh. Leo didn't say another word. He just bent down, hoisted Isabella over his shoulder, and walked away. Not another word was spoken. In a black BMW parked at the edge of the estate, a quiet conversation was taking place. Looks like Leo got his memory back. He's finally found Isabella's user manual. Dar. Evelyn Shaw said, popping a piece of chocolate into her mouth as she watched the chaos unfold. She saw Leo lift Isabella onto his shoulder. She also saw the crowd of people trying to stop them. Couldn't it just be that he finally snapped? Peyton said from the driver's seat, "You're about to marry someone else. Of course he's going to call in Frank Miller to set off some fireworks." To her, the scene seemed perfectly normal. Any man would have lost it. The Leo from before, the one without his memories, wouldn't have done this. He would have respected Isabella's decision, respected the objective future, believed he couldn't give her a bright life. Isn't that what a normal person would think? The conclusion that Leo is a normal person sounds abnormal in itself, because Isabella wouldn't be fascinated by a normal person. She's not some desperate femme fatale with no way out. Are we just chatting here, or are you taking potshots at me? Peyton shot Evelyn an annoyed look. The core of animal mating rituals isn't the pursuit of the universally normal. It's the pursuit of the unique. Because unique, in simple terms, means different from everyone else. A woman as unique as Isabella is pursuing something even more unique. And what is she pursuing? You can see for yourself. Evelyn pointed toward the man in the distance, running with a woman slung over his shoulder. Peyton saw it and came to a startling conclusion. Isabella likes being treated violently? She's a masochist? Are we just chatting here, or are you taking potshots at me? Evelyn retorted, then explained softly. She exhibits classic symptoms of emotional disregard, and her unique upbringing has led to a degree of emotional detachment. Simply put, she doesn't feel a lot of emotions. It's not that she doesn't like to smile. It's that she genuinely doesn't feel joy from certain things. When a person's emotional fluctuations are extremely infrequent, their behavior becomes extreme, like with this wedding. A normal person would worry. Will this wedding make others sad? Will I be sad? She has no such concerns. I'm positive she didn't give a single thought to how Sebastian Cole feels. That poor bastard. In pursuing her goals, she completely disregards emotional factors. In fact, her parents are the same way. Simply put, the end justifies the means. And people who believe that are often the most successful in the real world. That's why her parents are successful, and her own career is successful. Peyton had to agree with that part. She understood the deeper meaning. So, what does that have to do with being carried off over his shoulder? Haven't you heard of opposites attract? Evelyn tapped on the car window, her gaze strangely fixed on a figure in the distance lifting a propane tank. She sighed softly. Isabella has a divine quality, but Leo is overwhelmingly human. He'll act like a lovesick fool trying to help Summer Lynn fulfill her dream. He'll go to a backwoods town and put on a ridiculously sentimental wedding for you. But at the same time, he's too cowardly to even acknowledge me. If you look at it from a God's eye view, judging only by results, Leo is a complete and utter idiot. But that's precisely what makes him seem like a living, breathing person. He experiences youthful naivete, cowardice, but also courage born from sympathy for others. Any human emotion can appear in him, and it never feels strange. Evelyn smiled and continued. So that's the core of their entanglement. The more Leo displays his complex human emotions, the more Isabella can't leave him. Because she spent her whole life watching people act. It's like watching a TV show. The audience naturally has a God's eye view. This has led Isabella to think about everything from that same perspective. But suddenly, here's a person brimming with humanity. He gets jealous, happy, sad, brave, a complete mess of contradictions. A person like that pulls her down from her lofty cloud and makes her human too. So, everything Leo has done since losing his memory, all his behavior toward Isabella, has been fundamentally wrong. He tried to respect her, to restrain his anger at her coldness, to help her think about her future. That was his biggest mistake. Everyone she's ever met respects her, helps her with the pretext of it's for your own good. And besides, Isabella is 100 times more successful than he is. Does she need his help planning her future? What does Ms. Vance get out of that? What makes you, Leo Miller, so unique? Your uniqueness is your raw, vibrant emotions. And the most direct example is right in front of us. Evelyn pointed at the figure of the man carrying the woman in the white wedding dress as he sprinted past the front of their car. That's what Ms. Vance wants. She always acts from a God's eye view, indifferent to emotion. But you, Leo Miller, what right do you have to just sit there? What right do you have to watch me get married? Respecting decisions, respecting thoughts, that's for outsiders to consider. You, Leo Miller, what right do you have not to be angry? Leo heard a massive explosion behind him, but he didn't have time to look back. Are you a dog? Stop biting me. Put me down. No. He didn't even turn his head, just kept running. To be honest, at that moment, nothing else was in his brain. He just wanted to find a quiet place to give Isabella a piece of his mind. Leo, run. My dad's going crazy. The voice clearly came from behind him, but when Leo glanced back, he couldn't see where it was coming from. It took him a second to realize. A black blur shot past him. It was Latifah, carrying Sebastian on her back, running at an incredible speed. Leo cursed under his breath. You just couldn't argue with raw athleticism. You still haven't answered my question, Isabella said, still struggling on his back. I'm not answering. I'll answer if I want to, and I won't if I don't. You were already married. What's the point of answering now? You're jealous. Because of the way he was carrying her, her head was in front, so all she had to do was look down slightly to see his face. She saw it, and she said, You're jealous. It was a statement, not a question. I said, I'm not. Put me down. No, carry me properly. This is killing my back. Just bear with it. You're being awfully demanding. At that moment, Leo wasn't thinking rationally at all. It was pure emotional release. I want to take her, so I'm taking her. Is there a problem? No problem. A knowing look appeared on Isabella's face. She kept watching his eyes as they bounced along. When she seemed to find what she was looking for, she looked up, satisfied. For once, she didn't fire back a retort to his dismissive reply. She just let him carry her away. A beautiful arc traced itself across her icy face. Look how happy that woman is. Peyton drove the car slowly, following them from a distance. Evelyn was in the passenger seat, providing a running commentary. I should go pick them up. Peyton started to accelerate. You can't pick them up now. Peyton ignored her. This damn invalid was really starting to think she was the boss. Seriously, you can't. This escape is giving them time to be together. Once they get back to Riverbend, can't they spend as much time together as they want? That's assuming they get back, Evelyn said, peeling an orange and glancing down at her shoes. Tell me, if I started driving with my feet, how big of a car accident do you think it would cause? Are you insane? It's a necessary condition for your assumption to hold true, Evelyn said, licking her lips. Because only if we both die can your hypothesis actually come pass. After all this, Isabella still won't accept it. Is there a conflict between her liking the human side of Leo and her hating the idea of sharing him? It's like you love fish, but you hate the god-awful taste of black licorice. You're not going to eat black licorice just because you like fish. Anyone who can stomach black licorice probably has something wrong with their brain. A vivid metaphor. Just be careful the licorice companies don't sue you, Peyton said, flicking her hair back and slowing the car, heeding Evelyn's advice. So what comes next is a negotiation about the ending. A negotiation about each other's lowest points. Everything has its pros and cons. The reason Leo is so human is because his inner emotional life is extremely rich. And a 20-year-old with a rich emotional life is inevitably going to be a player. Isabella can accept his rich emotions, but she can't accept his infidelity. But Isabella herself has severe emotional disregard. The upside is that once she's attracted to someone, she falls hard. Simply put, it's Leo or no one. But that same disregard leads to her arrogant and self-centered personality, which most people can't stand. At least, Leo has a hard time with it. They both love each other's good qualities because those qualities are so dazzling anyone would accept them. But they both have trouble accepting each other's flaws, because with such brilliant strengths come equally extreme weaknesses. That goes for both of them. So, whether this story gets a perfect ending depends on whether this romantic drama couple can truly move from liking to loving. Whether they can, while enjoying each other's best parts, also wholeheartedly accept each other at their worst. Peyton listened to this speech, thinking it sounded more and more absurd. You're saying Leo has to accept Isabella's temper, and Isabella has to accept him having other women? Between those two, I'd be more willing to believe that black licorice is the most delicious thing on earth. You still don't understand men and women in love. I understand compromise and coping in a relationship, but this still sounds like a joke. Wanting to enjoy someone's strengths without being willing to accept their weaknesses. That's the biggest joke of all, Evelyn said sagely, her gaze lost on the two figures running into the distance. She wasn't concerned with how their story ended. She was just a little worried about whether the return of these memories would cause further problems. The god with the blue eyes. Evelyn let out a small laugh. The wind whistling through the cracked window sent her bangs dancing freely. The brawl was over. The ground was littered with broken chair legs, scattered flowers, a massive crater, and a soot-faced Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, let's get you to a hospital. No, Mr. Cole worked his bloody jaw, his trembling hands finding his dentures on the ground. Were these dentures? No, this was his shattered dignity. Cole, let's just let this go, mister, Vance said, trying to stifle a laugh. Vance, tell me honestly, were you involved in this? I'm a victim too, Cole. Mister. Vance wiped some of the soot from Mr. Cole's cheek on his own face. His own clean face looked a bit too conspicuous. Really? Mr. Cole shot him a sideways glance. Since you weren't involved before, don't get involved now. Cole, I have to be involved. My daughter is missing. Vance, if you put it that way, I might have to investigate just how Sebastian managed to escape the estate. You know what? I'm going to the hospital now. Remember to help me find my daughter. I'm entrusting this important mission to you. Don't worry, Mr. Cole said, clapping Mr. Vance on the shoulder and whispering in his ear, I have two objectives. First, find Sebastian. Second, make sure Leo and Frank Miller don't leave Boston alive. No problem, Mr. Vance sighed, scratching his head. But I have one more question. What is it? When Frank Miller was leaving just now, why didn't you dare to stop him? He was clearing the way with a semi-truck. You try stopping him. You don't think Frank died back there, do you? Leo asked, tilting his head. They had hitched a ride with a family heading out to the suburbs for a New Year's visit, which would conveniently take them back to the city. No. So what are the consequences for kidnapping you? You didn't even know the consequences and you still did it? I wasn't thinking that far ahead at the time, Leo said, a little sheepishly. The comment actually made Isabella laugh. She quickly turned her head, trying to hide her smile. Whoa, you can laugh. It's my face. I can laugh if I want to. Usually, a comment like that from Isabella would earn a simple eye roll from Leo. But this time, his eyes drifted over to her, and he shot back. Next one who laughs is a dog. A stupid game. Then how come you're not laughing? It's my face. I cannot laugh if I want to. Don't hold it in. Ha 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 ha. Leo couldn't help but burst out laughing at the sight of Isabella, trying to suppress her own laughter. You laughed. Woof, woof, woof. You're a little dog, Isabella said softly, tugging at the collar of his shirt. Their conversation in the back seat was fully observed by the old couple in the front. Their own kids were in Australia, leaving just the two of them. They were on their way to visit relatives on the third day of the new year. The old woman in the passenger seat had been beaming at them the entire time. You two are such an interesting little couple. Ma'am, we're not a couple, Leo quickly clarified. The woman looked surprised, then glanced back at Isabella's expression. Now, young man, you shouldn't joke like that. You've made your girlfriend unhappy. Are you two out in the country for a wedding photo shoot? Leo trailed off, but Isabella spoke up. Ma'am, would you mind taking a picture for us? Of course. The kind-hearted woman clapped her hands. With a new year and no grandkids to dote on, she was happy to have something to do. Honey, pull over. I'll turn into the woods. There's a little path here that leads to a fishing cabin. My friends and I often come here for picnics. Not for fishing. Too many questions, Sonny. If we catch fish, we came for fishing. If we don't, we came for a picnic. You're a master, sir. The fishing cabin by the stream was far more luxurious than they had imagined. It even had a windmill. Your Annie loves taking pictures under windmills, so I just built one for her, the bald man said, proudly patting his chest. The woman couldn't stop smiling. You two are so happy, Leo said, as he and Isabella stood in position under the windmill. What kind of photo should we call this? That depends on how you'll remember me, Isabella said. She was only half a head shorter than him. Is that question really so important? It's very important. Then ask me again. Do you love me? Isabella's voice was clear, without a hint of hesitation. Faced with such a direct question, Leo's mind went blank. His face turned red. Leo Miller was blushing. When does a person blush? When I want to say something but don't dare to. Emotion is humanity's most beautiful landscape, and a young man's blush is worth more than any words. The moment Leo blushed, Isabella broke into the most beautiful smile of her life. As the setting sun painted the sky in watercolors, the blue-eyed woman wrapped her arm around Leo's, her head resting on his shoulder. Out on the main road beyond the woods, an African woman was sprinting with a rail-thin man on her back. They kept encouraging each other, dreaming of their life back in Arabia. Behind them was a semi-truck. Standing in the truck bed was an arrogant thug, yelling insults at the several black SUVs trailing them. Pass me if you got the guts. I'll show you what full insurance coverage looks like. The old ruffian didn't know anything about love. Today, he just wanted to look cool in front of his son. In one of the SUVs, mister. Cole was grinding his teeth in fury. Oh, right. His dentures had been confiscated. He had no teeth. An absurd road movie was playing out in the suburbs. And under the setting sun, by the windmill, the shutter of a phone camera clicked. The tall, thin man in casual clothes, his hair messy from the escape, stood there, blushing and silent. The blue-eyed woman in the wedding dress was smiling. He was blushing because he had just remembered a certain moment from the past. She was smiling because she had finally gotten some answers. Few people knew what Isabella Vance was truly chasing. Was it the perfect fairy tale ending of one couple for a lifetime, or the tragedy of lovers parting with tears in their eyes? It was neither. But Isabella knew that in this single moment, she was happy. And so, she felt she might be close to that elusive thing called happiness. Because a person is never happier than when they are closest to it. I am Leo Miller. Right now, I'm standing under a windmill, blushing. The word blushing feels a bit foreign to me. You're a male escort. What the hell are you blushing for? I'm just remembering something. A memory about performing. Being a host is a job that requires performance. But a person can't be acting every second of every day. You could get the greatest actor in the world, and even they couldn't maintain a performance forever. So the standard for judging acting is defined by, can the audience tell? If the audience thinks your performance is forced, your acting is terrible. If the audience can't tell whether you're acting or not, you've mastered your craft. I'm a genius. Bro, most people can't tell when I'm acting. If the client were a dog, I could look at that dog with deep affection. I thought my performance was seamless, that it would never be discovered. No one could tell the difference between Leo the host and Leo the person. Certainly not someone like Isabella, who knew nothing about love. But she found me out. It was a rainy day, the air filled with a dull hum. The humming was because I had overslept. I'd set 7 alarms and slept through all of them. I was exhausted from the night before. Not only had I been her +1 at a banquet, but when we got back, I'd cooked a huge late-night meal for Ms. Vance, who hadn't eaten a thing. Then I'd waited drowsily for her to finish her work, prep the ingredients for the next morning's breakfast, and clean the kitchen. When I opened my eyes, it was already 9 in the morning. I threw on my clothes and bolted out of my room, heading for the kitchen. Then I stopped and doubled back. I went to Ms. Vance's room first. I had to apologize. I had begun to grasp the user manual for Ms. Vance. You couldn't treat her like a normal woman, using emotional appeals to calm her down. A typical woman's anger has 2 parts, logic and emotion. You have to defuse the emotion before you can address the logic. But Ms. Vance's anger was more like a boss's anger. Don't talk back. Bow your head, admit your mistake, analyze the cause, and propose a solution. This method seemed more complicated, but it was actually far more efficient than dealing with a woman's anger. Ms. Vance, I'm sorry. It was my fault. I didn't hear the alarm. Next time, I'll set it even earlier. After saying this, I was sure that while her tone would still be sharp, she wouldn't fly into a meaningless rage like many women would. Do you know how long I waited for you? Ms. Vance, if this happens again, you can wake me up. So now you're blaming me for not waking you? You think this is my fault? When I saw the hint of resentment in her eyes, I was shaken to my core. I would have preferred her to yell at me. Anything but this shift toward intimacy. I knew that ever since we got back to Riverbend from Boston, her attitude toward me had subtly changed. That day, I never should have listened to her and told her the truth. Because I had opened my iron box. I had told her about my past and my real feelings. Do you know why I was reluctant to share the second half of the iron box theory? It's not that I wouldn't teach it. It's because for someone like me, when I truly start to open my iron box for a woman, that's when she begins to fall. You can't learn this stuff, and if I taught it, you'd all just call me a show-off. I wasn't worried that if Ms. Vance fell for me, it would bring her trouble. A person of her class? She didn't need my concern. I was worried that my own life would become difficult. If your girlfriend is your co-worker, your job will be miserable. If your girlfriend is your boss, congratulations, you can probably say goodbye to happiness for the rest of your life. But I'm a genius. This was easy to handle. I just needed to intentionally create some distance between us. Ms. Vance's pride was higher than Mount Everest. I might have a few rough days, but that was better than a lifetime of misery. What? Why not just date Ms. Vance? First, I had a girlfriend. Second, what right does a poor student have to date someone with a net worth in the 9 figures? In that kind of relationship, you have no say in her freedom. You can't control anything she does. But she can control every aspect of your life. We weren't on the same level. I was self-aware enough to know that. So that night, when I was on the phone with Summer, I spoke very loudly. Usually, I made a point of being discreet around Ms. Vance. Sure enough, the next morning, Ms. Vance was furious. She demanded I wake up at 6 every day to cook. This was clearly a good thing. But things were starting to get out of control. Ms. Vance was visibly sad. Not angry, but sad. The dedicated workaholic was now prone to staring off into space. She would secretly listen at my door late at night. One time, I was sneaking on a certain website, and she caught me. The result? She deleted all my bookmarks. It sounds funny, but her behavior was clearly on the verge of spiraling. Simply put, she was crossing a line. But I thought it was fine. I could control the boundaries of our relationship. That wasn't just talk. She started demanding we try a dating plan, trying to replicate the relationship I had with Summer Lynn, even though I tried every way I could to tell her that we met in the wrong place. And I had a point. It's like hitting on a group of players at a bar and trying to start a serious relationship. Even if the person you meet is a diamond in the rough, you'll still be suspicious of them, and they'll be suspicious of you. The bar's atmosphere itself breeds distrust. The Cypress Lounge was no different. The moment my phone buzzes, you'll think it's a former client trying to flirt with me. That's what I told her. But she didn't believe in fate. I would make her believe. This dating experiment was the perfect opportunity for me to take control of the relationship. With a woman who had zero dating experience, I made sure she didn't feel a single ounce of romantic sweetness. It was all the mundane, day-to-day grind of a relationship. The daily grind is a normal part of love, but the sweet beginning is the fuel that keeps you going through the trivialities. I could have given her that sweetness, surprises, little dates, opening my iron box a little more. But I didn't, because I wanted her to back down. It was the only way that wouldn't hurt either of us too much and was for the best. After countless failed attempts at the dating plan, Ms. Vance clearly didn't understand what the problem was. She could only ask me again and again. I felt guilty because I was doing it on purpose. But maybe my purpose was wrong. In my mind, Ms. Vance was an extremely proud person who would never accept such a demeaning exercise. And she was proud. If you retreat after a failure, using your dignity as an excuse, how is that any different from being a coward? On any path she had chosen, she would not accept defeat. But thankfully, she stopped talking about dating. I breathed a sigh of relief. I thought it was over. Another banquet ended. I stepped out of the private club's main entrance, leaning against a pillar and taking deep gulps of fresh air. It was bullshit to think Ms. Vance could run such a large business without any social skills. But it was true that she hated it. That's why she often brought me to these events as a social shield. Same principle as the old warlords who married socialites. We're walking home. Okay, the boss had spoken. I had no choice but to obey. We strolled down the street and, without realizing it, ended up near the university. Ms. Vance suddenly asked me, "You and Summer Lynn have no future." I know. Even if Summer has a conscience and doesn't kick you to the curb after she makes it big, her agency would never allow you to exist. If you're ever exposed, it would be a devastating blow to her career. After Summer's concert, I'm going to break up with her. Are you sad? I shook my head. It would be a lie to say I wasn't sad, but mostly I was relieved. I knew from the day Summer left for Boston that some things were on a countdown. After all, while she was moving forward, I wasn't exactly standing still. I had seen many partings. I would use them as experience for all the meetings and partings in my own life. What do you feel for me? Why are you suddenly asking that? Leo, what do I have to do for you to finally take off this mask in front of me? That's when I realized. When she had said, like Summer Lynn in her dating plan, I had misunderstood. Her description was too vague. In fact, what she wanted wasn't the state of my relationship with Summer. It was that when I was with Summer, I was always Leo, not Leo the host. I could talk to Summer late at night on the phone about the past and the present. That kind of thing would never happen in front of Isabella. Ms. Vance, who at the lounge doesn't act. So, I brought you home. Why are you still acting? I couldn't answer that question, because if I really stopped acting, I'd lose my job. The day I start treating your house like my own, demanding food, throwing dirty clothes on the bed, you'll get your answer. But I couldn't say that. Leo, do you love me? What? Where is this coming from? I gave Summer Lynn a little help. I doubt you'd want to hear about her being taken advantage of by industry predators. Thank you. I don't know how to express love, so I hope to do it by fulfilling your wishes. Besides helping Summer, do you have any other wishes? I like a skewer of grilled squid. Go buy it. The squid was something I just blurted out because I was flustered. Isabella was clearly not a charitable person. In fact, she undoubtedly harbored a deep animosity towards Summer Lynn. Ms. Vance, thank you. I have nothing to repay you with. How about I extend my contract for another year, free of charge? No need. Isabella paid for the squid and handed it to me. Then, without any warning, without any hesitation, she said, "Do you love me?" I couldn't speak, because I was thinking. My first glance was at the busy street. There were food stalls full of life, college students just out of land center, roommates debating how to stretch their money to the end of the month, a vendor and a customer arguing over $1. In the private club I had just left, where a single bottle of wine cost 6 figures, not to mention the doorman's tip and the luxury cars filling the underground garage. The former was my life. I couldn't forget where I came from. Never. I was about to shake my head, but then I froze. Here was this half-foreign woman standing in front of me, offering me a salary I couldn't refuse, never giving up on a dating plan I had repeatedly sabotaged, and then telling me she wanted to fulfill my wish, even though that wish was to help my girlfriend. And the payment she was asking for was, I want to hear you say you love me. In that moment, I leaned against the wall, staring blankly at the sky, speechless. I kept telling myself, you have a girlfriend. You and Ms. Vance are not right for each other. But she was relentless. She moved closer, her blue eyes so near that I panicked and dropped the squid. She said, Leo, do you love me? In that instant, I cowardly looked away, my eyes landing on the dumpster at the mouth of the alley by the school entrance. Isabella laughed, giving up on her quest for an answer. She was so beautiful when she smiled. She said, Leo, you finally stopped acting. Is my acting that bad? I muttered weakly, trying to change the subject, but she held up her phone. In the selfie camera, I saw my own face. Leo, why are you blushing? Love, it seems, comes in so many flavors. There's high school love, a genre defined by Letterman jackets, past notes, blushing cheeks, high ponytails, acne, and basketball courts. Then there's adult love, a story that seems to revolve around careers, money, dating apps, social status, and whether your families belong to the same country club. The fact that you can distill love down to so many keywords suggests a massive database of objective samples. But some love stories are outliers, refusing to conform to the checklist. Two people who met in the transactional chaos of the adult world. They had a vast gap in status, an unconventional relationship, and personalities that were pure friction. A high-flying female CEO and a cynical, pretty boy gigolo. And yet in certain moments, they could still blush like teenagers. Love has infinite possibilities, the woman with the curly hair said, sitting on a bench beneath a decorative windmill. Her eyes were glassy with tears as she listened to their story of a runaway bride. So this young, beautiful couple wasn't out here for a wedding photo shoot. They were on the run from a wedding. Kids, her husband wanted to chime in to offer the wisdom of his years. He wanted to say that running away from a wedding was a rash, impulsive thing to do. That you have to be realistic, that you can't eat impulsive love for dinner. But his wife knew quality when she saw it. She patted his shoulder, a silent signal to shut up. She glanced at the wedding dress Isabella wore. A Pernovias from Barcelona. This was a rich kid, no doubt about it. So, the words caught in her throat. If you're young and don't have to worry about money, then why shouldn't you do what you want? Are you supposed to wait until you're our age? The woman was a Buddhist. She believed in fate, in karmic connections. She felt that in her long life, meeting these two kids right here, right now, was one of those connections. I support your decision, she said warmly. Whenever you decide to have a real wedding, I'll come and put something in the gift envelope. In this day and age, you couldn't avoid giving wedding gifts if you tried. A person who actively wanted to give one was a rare find. It was, as they say, a beautiful twist of fate. We're not getting married, Isabella said, shaking her head as she sat on a large rock. But didn't you run away because you're truly in love? Yes, I love him. That's why I just needed to confirm that he loves me, too. So you have no impulse to be together, to build a family? No, Isabella and Leo said in unison, shaking their heads. Isabella clarified, the lover I want is someone who revolves around me, someone who has no other life. Leo countered, the partner I want is someone I can at least talk to as an equal, someone who supports my ideas. The woman kindly took both their hands and placed them together. She looked at Leo first. Do you think she can change for you? Leo shook his head without a flicker of hesitation. Then she turned to Isabella. Have you ever thought about finding someone else, someone who better fits what you want? No, Isabella said, shaking her head just as firmly. You two are a strange pair, the woman mused, shaking her own head. You don't think she'll ever change, but you were still willing to come and get her. And you don't want to replace him, yet you waited for him to come and get you. She fell silent, looking at them with a kind of pity. Some people are just born to be tangled together, to spend a lifetime tormenting one another. On the Boston waterfront, the wind whipped fiercely. My frail frame can't handle this wind, Evelyn Shaw complained. You're telling me Isabella just want an answer? Peyton asked, exasperated, as she took off her jacket and draped it over Evelyn's shoulders. For now, apparently. It wasn't like that before, and it won't be like that later. Or rather, later will become the new before. Evelyn turned her back to the wind, speaking in the kind of riddles that made Peyton want to scream. I've heard a lot of details about their past from Leo, and I've had many private conversations with Isabella. I've summarized some patterns. What patterns? Cycles, Evelyn said. Oh, great master, will I be reincarnated as a human or a beast of burden in my next life? Peyton looked at Evelyn like she was a complete lunatic. Cycles, right? and Peyton was the queen of the underworld, here to collect her soul. Don't dismiss it, Evelyn insisted. If you divide Leo and Isabella's history into stages and treat each stage as a lifetime, you'll see it. From beginning to end, every stage follows the same pattern. They meet, they fall in love, they part ways. If you're willing to entertain the mystical, you could absolutely call it a cycle of reincarnation. Their love and hate are trapped in a loop. Evelyn hummed a little tune. Before I came to Riverbend, I used one of Willow's contacts to meet with a certain Master Hausher. I wanted to hear a true expert's opinion on these two. Can you give me his number? I want to ask when I'll get pregnant. You can't pray to a master for that, Peyton. You have to pray to Leo. Evelyn shot back automatically, then glared. Stop interrupting. Their birth charts are fundamentally incompatible. For example, Leo's chart has an excess of competitive energy, while Isabella's has an overabundance of rebellious energy. The conclusion, Evelyn. I don't speak astrology. In short, according to traditional wisdom, they check every box for should not be together. They even fit old folks' sayings about bad luck with age gaps. But isn't that stuff just, it's only real if you believe in it? That might be true for traditional culture, but not for the esoteric, Evelyn continued ominously. I've studied the stars. Those two might literally be cursed. Okay, cut the crap, Peyton said, losing her patience. Just tell me, can you help them or not? I can. But what does help even mean in this context? It means getting them home so they can go to sleep. I've got a mountain of work to deal with at the lounge. Fine, Evelyn said, turning with a sly smile. Then we'll just have them break up for good. Waiting for the boat by the waterfront, Leo felt a strange agitation churning in his gut. This was the upside of calling Frank Miller. His uncle was probably still locked in some brutal negotiation, but the boat for his nephew had been arranged instantly. Leo and Isabella stood side by side on the pier. He turned his head and spoke softly. What are you going to do when you get back to Riverbend? I have a massive company to run. I'll go to work, of course. So, will we see each other after this? Do you want to see me? Then I guess we shouldn't, Leo said, the words coming out without much difficulty. To not cut the cord was to invite chaos. This trip to Boston hadn't been for nothing. His memory was back, and he'd given Isabella her answer. It was only natural their lives would now diverge. Leo, are you leaving me again? Leo nodded. He didn't have a choice in the matter. This was the price he had to pay for accepting Evelyn and Peyton. You reap what you sow. There was nothing more to say. Suddenly, I feel so tired, he murmured. He sat down on a bench, then lay back, inhaling the salty, damp air. An unspeakable exhaustion washed over him, originating deep within his brain. He felt like his heart was about to pound its way out of his chest. Leo, I've seen you like this before. Like what? I used to think you were just exhausted. Now I realize this might be one of your episodes. Isabella sat beside him and gently guided his head onto her lap. Do you remember the last time we were here, on the waterfront, watching the sunrise in your eyes? Yes. Isabella stared blankly at the sky, now draped in a velvet of night. A single word surfaced in her mind. Déjà vu. You could just say it feels familiar. Don't you think it's almost exactly the same? She mused. Crashing a wedding, coming to the waterfront, and then you having an episode. I didn't have an episode last time. Last time we were here, I asked you to tell me what was truly on your mind. Do you remember what you said? I remember. I said I accepted the country girl's heart of a viper, accepted Summer Lynn chasing her dreams, accepted the possessive woman's dark obsessions. Exactly. That was what was on your mind. And it's the reason for your episodes. Explain. I don't understand psychology, but whatever is causing you this much distress, this feeling of being overwhelmed, it has to be a monumental problem. My life is full of monumental problems, but there's only one you've never solved. What's that? The problem that's making you feel the most helpless right at this very moment. Leo froze, his eyes meeting Isabella's as he slowly sat up. In an instant, it hit him. What was the most helpless problem on his mind right now? It was the question of what to do about everyone else, now that he had accepted Evelyn and Peyton. It was a problem that, no matter what he did, he was powerless to solve. The proof was sitting right in front of him. How was he supposed to solve the problem of Isabella? Could he solve it, even if he turned into a super scion? No. An unsolvable problem becomes a knot in your soul. Leo, tell me now, Isabella pressed, her voice soft but firm. Back then, when you were standing here, was this question on your mind? Leo hesitated for a few seconds, then gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He was a normal person with feelings. His heart wasn't made of stone. The last time he was here, he'd had a girlfriend, Summer Lynn. He already knew his psychologist was the mysterious older girl from his past. He had already been to the mountains with Peyton. Faced with all these profound emotional connections, he couldn't make a choice. Just like now, Did he have feelings for Isabella? Yes. But could he abandon Peyton and Evelyn? Impossible. Leo sat there, motionless, staring at the familiar scenery, his expression a storm of complicated emotions. A ridiculous thought flickered through his mind. Was the amnesia my brain's way of letting me forget all this so I could start over? I don't know, Isabella said softly, as if reading his thoughts. But I don't think your brain would try to hurt you. Everything was déjà vu. Leo sat by the waterfront all night, staring up at the sky in silence. Isabella sat beside him, waiting patiently, a kaleidoscope of images flashing through her mind. No one understood better than her that this was all a cycle. The last time they'd returned to Riverbend after a crashed wedding, Leo's behavior had grown increasingly erratic, culminating in his breakdown on the mountain. So this time, she would do the opposite. This time, she wouldn't suffocate him with so much love. That love, she now realized, might have become a crushing weight. Huh, you don't really think I'm giving up, do you? The great, blue-eyed goddess only knew two outcomes in this life: victory or death. There was no retreat. She didn't accept the other two women, but that didn't mean she would surrender. Any excuse for giving up was just weakness. She had lived her entire life by that code. If he didn't accept her today, there was always tomorrow, and the day after that. Isabella glanced over her shoulder at the two women standing a short distance away. Talking trash about me, aren't you? A lifetime is long. No one could just work all the time. Let's see who lasts. Leo felt like he'd been asleep for a very long time. He'd had a neon-color dream. A giant, holographic koi fish swam in the sky while he lay breathing in a filthy sewer. He wasn't startled awake. He just opened his eyes, naturally. The scene before him was familiar. Isabella's house. Leo scratched his head and, on autopilot, walked downstairs to the kitchen. It was one of the required rituals of being at Isabella's place. Cooking. It was practically muscle memory by now. Leo, leave my house. We've broken up. Don't touch my things. Don't be dramatic, he grumbled, not even looking at her as he started mincing scallions. But then, something unexpected happened. Isabella's behavior was abnormal. Did I not tell you to put down the knife and get the hell out? My head hurts. Can't I just rest here for a bit? Leo was lying. It wasn't a headache. It was a sudden, baseless fear of going outside. The very thought of leaving made him feel short of breath. It was the same feeling as in the dream, breathing in that filthy sewer, mud and water clogging his nose. What's wrong, Leo? It's just a little headache. Should we go to the hospital? I probably just slept wrong. I'll eat something and go back to sleep. Leo tried to act normal, because he didn't think anything was wrong with him. Just heart palpitations, probably from lack of sleep. Can I stay here for a few days? What is really wrong with you? Just pretend I can't bear to leave you. Isabella looked at him, surprised. She knew this was probably one of his episodes. Her first instinct was to show concern, to comfort him, but her past mistakes were a blaring siren in her mind. Right now, her love was a massive source of pressure for him. She had to do the opposite. Leo, we have no relationship anymore. If you're going to stay here, you have to share the household duties, Isabella said after a moment's thought. Just like before. I provide the money. You provide the labor. I can hire a housekeeper, Leo said, pulling out his phone. He started sending messages to everyone in his contacts, telling them he was thinking of going on a trip for a while. It's better if there isn't a third person in this house. Then why don't you try providing the labor? Leo said it while texting, distracted. It was just a casual, offhand remark. But to his astonishment, fine. Isabella actually nodded in agreement. It was the opposite approach. Last time, after the wedding fiasco, Leo had done all the work. The opposite, naturally, meant she would do it. Are you serious? Of course. Don't. Your cooking is inedible. For the next 10 days, I'm not going to work. I'll stay home and master the art of housekeeping. Fine, Leo relented. I promised to spend 10 days with you before anyway. We'll have a 10-day cohabitation agreement. And after 10 days, you're not allowed to stay in my house, Isabella added, making sure to draw a clear line. Last time, she had launched an all-out offensive. This time, she had to do the opposite. Not only would she stop applying pressure, but she would also make him want to make a move on her. The great, blue-eyed goddess was eternally confident. She'd suspected Leo was hesitant because he had too many women. She'd suspected he felt insecure because of their difference in status. She had even, for a fleeting moment, suspected he wasn't straight. But she had never once doubted her own allure. Not for a second. The 10-day plan was a go. Isabella walked upstairs, filled with a sense of triumph, leaving Leo alone on the couch downstairs. He dialed Evelyn's number. Confidential matter. I think my condition might be getting worse. Be specific. I'm a little afraid to go outside. That's strange, Evelyn mused. We'll have to dig into your memories to find the cause. What are you doing now? I haven't made any sudden moves. I'm staying at Isabella's place. I wanted to check in with you. That's the right call. Stay there. Keep me updated if anything changes. Okay. Leo hung up and took a deep breath, trying to clear his mind. He would try to meditate. It was a technique Willow had taught him at the Celestial Master's Sanctuary. It really worked, calming the storm in his head. But just as he closed his eyes, he heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. He instinctively looked up, and when he did, he knew he was in trouble. What in the hell are you wearing? Isabella turned her head slightly, her blue eyes meeting his. A maid outfit. What's wrong with it? The maid outfit has a long and storied history. These days, you mostly see two types, the traditional and the improved. The traditional version might not immediately come to mind. It's based on the uniforms of maids in medieval Europe. Simple, practical, and consisting of a white, frilly apron over a long black or blue dress, topped with a head covering. The only decorations were the apron's ruffles and a bow at the collar. It was dark and utilitarian. This was actually closer to what Isabella had envisioned. It's what she tried to buy. If you're going to work, you should look the part. But in this day and age, there's no market for the traditional look. The maid outfit is no longer work attire for a regular domestic setting. It's work attire for a specialized setting. You don't find it at a uniform supply store. You find it at an adult novelty shop, which is why Isabella was currently wearing the improved version. It was an improvement in the sense that it kept the white, frilly apron, but the dress had been shortened to a miniskirt, paired with thigh-high stockings and embellished with an explosion of ruffles, lace, and oversized bows. It was meant to be worn this way, so Isabella wore it this way. Seriously, who told you to wear white stockings to do housework? It came as a set. To be honest, Isabella thought it was a bit strange, too. But she wasn't worried about her image. She was confident she could look good, even in a potato sack. But in Leo's eyes, this was a major problem. Isabella, my head is killing me. Please don't mess with me right now. I'm working. Let me do it. I'm begging you. Isabella smirked. Her strategy was working. This was the time to show him no affection, to draw a clear line. That way, Leo would be the one to make a move. See? He's already starting to attack. She turned her back to him with a smug little smile and reached down to smooth a wrinkle in her thigh-highs, pulling the elastic band taut. The material snapped back against her skin with a soft thwack. Leo felt his brain make the same sound. It was about to explode. What the hell is she trying to pull? His head was already throbbing, and now this. Isabella, if you're trying to seduce me, just say so. It's not like I'm some kind of saint. Stay away from me. We're roommates. It's already an act of mercy that I'm letting you stay here. As she spoke, she actually pulled a paring knife out of a drawer. You have to hand it to her. This chaotic combination of moves completely baffled him. It was just too out of character. The great blue-eyed goddess might have been stubborn before, but only verbally. In the past, even if Leo said no, she'd give him what she thought he wanted. If she had it, she'd give it. Now, suddenly, every part of her was projecting a hard no. It left him utterly clueless, especially since her words said no, but her outfit screamed something else entirely. A terrifying theory began to form in Leo's mind. Back on the waterfront, he had explicitly said they should go their separate ways. Was this her revenge? She's trying to lure me into making a move, then she'll have me arrested for assault. Or she'll imprison me here, torturing me daily with new outfits until my little Leo explodes from pressure. The more he thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Isabella was an incredibly vengeful woman. He remembered the time she'd heard the sounds of an adult film from his room and had proceeded to delete every single one of his bookmarks. What kind of monster does that? I have to get out of here. Leo put on a nervous smile, watching Isabella's expression as he slowly backed toward the front door. The moment his hand touched the doorknob, his heart began to pound erratically. He started gasping for air. It was a bizarre sensation. It wasn't that there was any danger outside. It was more like a comfort zone response. It was like a chronic shut-in, someone who spends all their time at home, entertained by the internet, fed by delivery apps, with minimal contact with the outside world, finally forces himself to go out. Standing outside, surrounded by strangers, he's overwhelmed by a single, powerful thought. Going home is the most comfortable, the safest option. Being out here feels wrong, hostile even. That's what Leo felt right now. His subconscious was telling him that staying here was the most comfortable thing to do. It wasn't a fear of going out. It was that there was no need to go out. Maybe I should just tough it out here? Leo scratched his head, still hesitating. But his body had already decided. He let his hand fall from the doorknob. What's wrong? Nothing. Just thought I'd get some fresh air. As Leo turned around, he came face to face with Isabella, who was holding a vacuum cleaner and had bent over to get a closer look at him. Since it was lingerie, the outfit was, by design, made with a minimal amount of fabric. Combine that with Isabella's tall frame and the fact that she was bent at the waist, and a lot of what should have been covered was decidedly not. "This is a nightmare," Leo muttered, forcing his gaze up to the ceiling. His face was a mask of pure resignation. He was already on edge. Now he was 10 times more on edge. "Could you please put on some real clothes?" "No." Isabella's lips curved into a satisfied smile. She watched his expression, unable to hold back a chuckle. This was the right move. Leo was about to break. He might be able to hold out for a day, but she didn't believe for a second he could last 10. The moment he made a move on her, she would have one. "Leo? Leo." Isabella tapped him on the head, calling his name softly. "Don't talk to me. I'm thinking," he said, as he plunged deep into a memory. "My name is Leo Miller." That feeling just now, it brought back fragments of a memory. There was another time when I didn't want to leave this house. The memory begins on a breezy, pleasant day. I don't remember where I was coming from, but I remember walking through the front door. I had run back here because I felt that being here was comfortable. I'd been living here for months. Subtly, without me even realizing it, this place had become a kind of home. Isabella wouldn't be home until night. Lately, I'd been afraid to face her. After the failure of several of her dating plans, she had reverted to her old self, becoming colder and more distant with each passing day. My contract was about to expire. What was I going to do with my life? I had spent countless nights thinking about my dreams and about love. It's all a 20-year-old boy really knows. I didn't know what my dream was. My life was too busy, too suffocating to even think about it. As for my love life, I let out a heavy breath. So many faces flashed through my mind. The grand wedding in that mountain village, and a bride who paid to see me smile. A big sister who had tried to take her own life multiple times but begged me not to do the same, who still wouldn't acknowledge our connection. So many faces. I picked up my phone and looked at the wallpaper. My childhood sweetheart. I genuinely wished her nothing but the best, hoped she could chase her dreams. But how could I do right by everyone? I didn't know. But I was starting to hate myself, because I was probably just a two-timing bastard. Evelyn had told me that if I were the kind of guy who just hit it and quit it, I probably wouldn't have any psychological problems. But that wasn't me. I stood there for a moment, catching my breath until the feeling of comfort returned. I started to head upstairs to clean the bathroom, but when I looked up, I saw those blue eyes. An involuntary sigh escaped my lips. "Leo, have I reached the point where the mere sight of me makes you sigh?" "Isabella, I just ran back, and I'm a little tired, that's all. You are, of course, a supreme being in my heart. Stop your fake performance." She clearly thought I was just being a suck-up. She turned and walked away. But I wasn't performing. In my heart, she really was like a goddess. All my detachment, all my distance, stemmed from the same reason as with the others. A goddess who, despite countless failures, still wanted to try, who just wanted to hear me say I love you. But I had no right to say that. From any angle, all the vibrant energy I showed around her came from a desire to play my role well. If I were to truly take off the boy toy mask and stand before her as myself, my heart would be filled with nothing but the fear of getting closer. It was like only being able to talk to the girl of your dreams by pretending you're just a friend. So, faced with her coldness, I was helpless. All I could do was silently do my work, then retreat to my room and lie on my bed without a word. "Tomorrow, you're coming out with me. I have a business dinner. Wait for me in the car outside." "Okay." Her voice came from outside my door. I had no reason to refuse. Being her driver was part of my job, but the thought of going out made me uneasy. "Isabella, could I drop you off and come home for a bit, then pick you up when you're done? You can't just wait outside." "I can't," I said. Waiting was a driver's duty. I nodded in acquiescence. "Leo, what's wrong? Is there something you want to say?" "No, boss. I know you can't wait for this contract to end, but there are only 2 months left. Can't you even give me that much time?" When I heard that, I knew she hadn't given up on her dating plans at all. She was still trying to date me, but I couldn't meet her demand. I'd said it before. We met in the wrong place. The Cypress Lounge was the wrong place. And I'd said we met at the wrong time. It was too late. Faced with a clearly hurting Isabella, I immediately pushed open my door. "Isabella, of course I want to work for you forever. Why would I want a contract to end? Then will you renew it when it expires?" I froze. After a long moment, I shook my head. What was the point of renewing it? To continue torturing each other? It was a relationship with no future. Continuing this cohabitation would only make it harder for both of us to separate. Habit is a killer. "No, Isabella, I'm a little tired." "I understand," she said, her eyes turning to ice. What could I say? Could I tell her that I did want to renew, but we developed feelings for each other? It would only make things messy, eh? The outcome would be the same. That night, Isabella stayed up late, watching TV on the downstairs couch. As a thoughtful boy toy, I couldn't go to sleep either. I had to grab a pillow and go down to keep her company. Isabella, you have to be up early tomorrow. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Normally, she'd be angry. Her response should have been, none of your business. Since something had changed, there was only one explanation. Isabella, need a tissue? I asked, seeing the faint redness in her eyes under the projector's glow. I'm not crying. It's for your mouth. You're drooling. You're the one who's drooling. I chuckled foolishly and squeezed onto the couch next to her. The movie was The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. My favorite. I also wanted to find my life's frame 25. Every time I watched it, I cried. Leo, you cry too? Everyone feels sadness, so everyone cries. But sadness isn't a physical substance. You can't extract it from a test tube. Why not just treat it as something imaginary? Is that what you thought when you were a kid? No wonder you're so inhuman. Answer my question. Sadness might be imaginary, but tears are real, I said, pointing to her red-rimmed eyes. At that moment, she looked like a wounded animal. A cold woman looking pathetic is a devastating weapon. If your heart doesn't ache, I'll give you a thumbs up, but please give me a look of contempt. My heart wouldn't ache. All right, go on up to bed. Leo, are you sure there's nothing you need to tell me? I'm fit as a fiddle. I feel like I could eat a whole cow. You really don't seem okay today. Maybe it's because I'll be leaving in 2 months. I guess I'm a little sad. You'll only be happy to leave, Isabella said, getting off the couch resentfully, her long legs striding toward the stairs. I knew she was angry again, but as I looked up, my eyes met hers. She had stopped and turned back. She looked nervous. Leo, don't lie to me with your sweet talk, she said, her voice tentative. I'm 99% sure you want to leave, and the other 1% is if you have nowhere else to go. How could I have nowhere else to go? I said if. Isabella maintained her cold expression, threw the words over her shoulder, and went upstairs. If you really have nowhere else to go, remember you can always come back. This will always be your home. Leo stood by the door and shot his head up. He saw Isabella, standing before him in the maid outfit. Leo, you don't seem right. Isabella turned and walked away, saying to herself, if you really want to leave, I won't force you to stay. I never said I wanted to leave. You're standing by the door. I'm 99% sure you want to go. And the other 1%, I'm waiting for you to tell me yourself. Isabella spun around, tears welling in her reddened eyes. Isabella, I think I might be sick, Leo finally said, the words he couldn't say in the past tumbling out. I think being here is comfortable. This will always be your home. Some things you can never know without a bird's eye view. No one knows if the real secret to change is to do the opposite, but experience shows that Isabella's past attempts at doing the opposite never worked. But what about 2? P.S. By chance, I found out my old book was unbanned. It was unbanned out of nowhere, without any notification, which is ridiculous. If you're interested, you can check it out. I'll tell you in advance. That book is very juvenile, and some of the plots are absurd. Be mentally prepared. The 10 days flew by, and everything was changing for the better. Leo didn't hide his condition. He didn't see the point. Mentally, he didn't feel sick at all. For most people, being sick is defined by its symptoms. In other words, an illness only counts if it has a noticeable impact on your life. A cold brings fever, weakness, and coughing. Only when the symptoms appear do you think, oh, I think I'm sick. Leo had symptoms, but he didn't think they were a big deal. He could still go out when he needed to. It wasn't like there was a guard dog at the door stopping him. He could do whatever he wanted. Well, not exactly. There was a guard dog at the door. A starving one. Seriously, why is this dog always hungry? Every time Leo opened the door, the Doberman with a metal food bowl in its mouth would jump up and down excitedly. Buttercup, don't blame me for leaving you at Isabella's place. You eat so much, a guy would have to be loaded to afford you. His name is Brutus. Isabella, dressed and ready to go out, heard a name that displeased her and immediately corrected him. Huh, is it? Leo stood up and scratched his head, a flicker of confusion on his face. He remembered now. The Doberman was the dog Summer Lynn had bought. Summer had named her Buttercup. After Isabella took over, the dog's name was changed to Brutus. Leo knew this. He had obviously been influenced by his newly recovered memories. Brutus, sorry boy, my mistake. Thinking about Summer Lynn, a lot of memories have come back. And what do you think? Things are good the way they are now. His memories of Summer were linear. The good part was that she was a constant presence in many people's recollections. The bad part was that there were just so many memories of her. Let's go. We're going out. I don't want to. I'm kind of tired. You haven't done anything since you woke up this morning except eat. How can you be tired? I'm really tired. I'm gonna go take a nap. No, you have to go out. You've been cooped up in the house for 2 days. Leo sighed, planting his hands on his hips in frustration. He really didn't want to leave. He was perfectly happy just holing up somewhere, scrolling on his phone, and living a slacker's life. Why bother running around all day, looking for trouble? I'm not going. You have to. After 2 days of truce, the core conflict between them finally erupted. A battle for control. This time, Leo backed down. How about we just sit by the door and get some sun? Okay, how about this? Tonight, we'll hike up the mountain to watch the sunrise. Just this once. After that, I'll never ask you to go out again. They clearly hadn't reached a consensus. But Leo compromised. He nodded wearily. You know what? Never mind. If you don't want to, we won't go. I'll just stay home with you for the next few days. Isabella compromised, too, biting back her frustration. And just like that, on an unremarkable morning, with the sun high in the sky and a gentle breeze blowing, a breakthrough seemed to have been reached. Isabella had compromised. A person's compromise is usually a process of death by 1,000 cuts, like ceding territory in a treaty. The first compromise leads to the second. It seemed like a development everyone would be happy to see. If Frank Miller, lying in a hospital bed wrapped in bandages, could see this, he'd probably feel his broken bones were worth it. If Peyton saw this, she'd think, finally, this chapter is over. Time for the next one. Only Leo. The moment he saw Isabella compromise, a flicker of panic crossed his face. Let's go, he said, nodding without waiting for her reaction and heading straight for the door. I thought we weren't going. We're going. Leo, did you hit your head on the door? Isabella finally snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. First he wants to go, then he doesn't. What did he want? We're really going. We're really going. Let's get ready, Leo said quietly, smacking his lips strangely. It's just, you suddenly compromising felt weird. Isn't that what you wanted? What did I ever say I wanted you to compromise? They set off, a return to a familiar place. Leo looked out at the scenery in wonder, matching the passing views with the images in his memory. It was a strange feeling, like checking off a list of lost goods against an invoice. When they parked at the foot of the mountain, he expertly took Isabella's arm and started leading her up the path. You look a little off. Does being outside make you uncomfortable? The last time we hiked this mountain, I was very uncomfortable being outside. The last time, Isabella suddenly remembered. The last time they'd come here, Leo's expression had been heavy burdened. At the time, she'd thought he was just tired. Revisiting a place, combined with revisiting the past, was a deadly combination. Memories began to stir in Isabella's mind. It was on this very mountain that the feelings between them had reached their peak, only to plummet immediately after. Because right after this came his departure. But when she suggested coming here this time, Isabella had been fully prepared. She was going to end it all in one fell swoop, to conquer Leo completely on this summit. She wanted to hear him say, I love you, and mean it. If you're going to stalk them, why did you have to drag me along? Peyton glared at Evelyn Shaw. She truly could not understand why this woman had to show up at her house in the middle of the night, mashing the doorbell, insisting they go play detective. I was afraid I'd get halfway up and not be able to make it. You can at least carry me. Am I your mother? Carry you up a mountain. My mother's dead. You could be my mom if you want. I swear. Peyton was so exasperated she was speechless. This is the last time I'm indulging your nonsense. I've realized no one in this family is interested in making money. You all just use me as a tool. Oh, Peyton, you're the best. You're the queen bee of this whole operation. After all, what kind of title is that? Peyton said, shaking her arms out. Don't call me that. You don't like it? Evelyn saw it clearly. The moment she said, Queen Bee, the sleepy irritation on Peyton's face vanished. Women were such hypocrites. Let's go, Your Majesty. We're already here, aren't we? Peyton agreed, feigning reluctance. But in a corner Evelyn couldn't see, she smiled again. This was the price of competence. Did they think Queen Bee was just a title? It was an unspoken acknowledgement of her status. At least Evelyn felt that whenever she needed something done, she could go to Peyton. The downside was more work. The upside was that all information was shared with her immediately. In this game, no matter how many women were involved, Peyton would never be isolated or kept in the dark. She didn't have the time or the interest to watch everyone like Evelyn did. But as long as Evelyn discovered something, she would definitely come to her. It was just a hike. She had clawed her way from a destitute town in the north all the way to Riverbend. She could handle this little hill. Your Majesty, what are you daydreaming about? Evelyn nudged her, looking up at the towering mountain. I have a feeling Isabella has something planned for tonight. What kind of plan? A plan to snatch Leo away from us. That's impossible. But what if? Evelyn whispered. Leo's not well right now. Anything could happen. Didn't you say all Isabella wanted was for him to admit he loves her? Yes, but think about why he won't say it. Because saying it means taking responsibility. And what does taking responsibility for Isabella mean? It means the two of us get kicked to the curb, Peyton concluded, her face impassive, without a hint of panic. She calmly started changing into a windbreaker. That doesn't even scare you? Evelyn asked, curious. Aren't mistresses supposed to be insecure and paranoid? Being a mistress also requires a good eye for men, you know? I trust my judgment. Peyton's expression was serene. After zipping up her jacket, she leaned in close to Evelyn. And what about you, the pet? Aren't you worried about finding a new owner? I am. But I'm not worried either, Evelyn said with a gentle smile. I'm just constantly monitoring Leo's mental state. If things go south, I'll immediately send him somewhere. Where? I'm not telling you. I'll carry you. Okay. Isabella, I think you're up to something. What do you mean? You're being sneaky. You're not planning to propose to me on the summit, are you? Guess. Leo was instantly on high alert. Something was definitely not right. You compromised on everything today just to lure me up here? Lure is such an ugly word, Isabella said, leaning on a hiking pole as she slowly made her way to the peak. It was a difficult climb at night, but thankfully the mountain wasn't too high. They reached the top in just over an hour. The entire way, Leo was vigilant, afraid a surprise would jump out at him from behind a rock. Finally, they were sitting on that same large boulder. All right, spill it. What are you plotting? Nothing, Isabella said. She was wearing large sunglasses, the hood of her black windbreaker pulled over her head, a single strand of hair falling across her forehead. She sat there, quietly waiting for the sunrise. They saw the newborn sun break through the clouds. Its slanted rays cast a dreamlike haze in the air. The tall woman suddenly leaned against the man, a move that sent him into a fresh wave of vigilance. He kept looking around nervously. It wasn't until the woman resting on his shoulder spoke that he looked down in disbelief. She said, Leo, I like the you that has emotions, not the you that's playing a part. I'm not playing a part right now. You're still playing, Isabella said, taking off her glasses. The light danced in her blue irises. You're playing the part of someone who doesn't love me, always ready to leave me. Because you know I could never truly share you with anyone. Isabella felt her legs getting cold resting on the rock, so she lifted them and placed them on Leo's lap. Leo sat on the boulder in silence, staring at the sun. A newborn sun is still blinding. The glare brought tears to his eyes. He suddenly remembered the last time. He had sat here and cried then, too. Isabella had wiped the tears from his eyes. Why had he cried last time? In Isabella's memory, it was probably because of his exhausting life, the immense mental pressure. In reality, it was none of those things. He had cried because of her relentless pursuit, because she would never give up, and because now, in this very moment, she was saying, looking back, our journey has been so incredible. Countless breakups and makeups, arguments and fights. None of it could stop me from falling in love with you all over again. So this time, tell me, you've always loved me. I'm willing to compromise for you. The steep summit was barren, but as the sun washed over it, the rocks seemed to burst with life, like a desolate land suddenly blooming with flowers. Isabella looked at Leo's profile. She said, don't look so sad. Your smiling eyes are what I love. P.S. Happy birthday, dragon. Love you. Here's a look at my legs. The book is up for review, so I need your help, brothers. I'm collecting title suggestions. A long title, tomato style, under 15 characters, not too artsy. Leo shot to his feet and stared into Isabella's shining eyes. He stood on a mountaintop and let out a raw, guttural scream into the distance. Then he turned back to her, his face alight with a new energy. I told you, I don't want you to compromise. Then do you love me? Yes, I love you. And because I love you, I don't want you to compromise. If Leo had actually asked her to compromise in that moment, what kind of love would that have been? Even with all my flaws? Yes, it was as if a switch had been flipped inside Leo. He finally found the courage to speak. When my memory came back, I realized, I have seen so many of your flaws, but you still hold a sacred place in my heart. Isabella, in my eyes, you're a goddess. Do you understand that? You love a goddess? I love a person with flaws. Tears suddenly welled up in Isabella's eyes, turning them into two clear lakes. In that moment, nothing else mattered. From the very beginning, everything had stemmed from that first encounter. In that lounge, a person full of divinity had met a person full of humanity. It was a story that had been told on this land for ages. The celestial maiden who fell for the coward. The holy mother who fell for the common man. Can a human compare to a god? No. The fact that gods and mortals cannot be together is the biggest incompatibility of all, an ironclad rule. And yet, these gods kept falling in love with humans. Because love has infinite possibilities. Of course, the result of an unsuitable love is always a tragedy, separated by a galactic river or crushed under a mountain. There are no happy endings. Perhaps the great, blue-eyed goddess was also fated to suffer this trial. But she felt this was enough. She turned her head, and on a nearby boulder, she saw two familiar figures. What are you two doing here? Watching the sunrise. Can your body even handle a mountain climb? Isabella's face was filled with disbelief as she instantly launched into a sarcastic tirade. Let's just talk. No personal attacks, Evelyn mumbled, then asked tentatively. I think I just heard something incredible. So, just checking. Are you two officially broken up this time? What if we are? What if we aren't? If you are. Evelyn sneakily poked Leo in the lower back and whispered, Hubby, if you're heartbroken, do you want to come home for breakfast? I'm not dead yet. Isabella stepped between them, blocking Evelyn's view. Didn't you two just break up? The second we break up, you're already moving in? Isabella, that's not right, Evelyn said sweetly. You broke up. We didn't. You. Isabella stood there, fuming, at a loss for words. She shot a desperate, pleading look at Peyton, only to find that Peyton was even worse. A breakup is no big deal, Peyton was already saying, consoling Leo. You two will never really be done. Isabella, furious, stomped over to Leo. Say something. We do need to separate. You're leaving again, is that it? Yes. To not cut the cord was to invite chaos. This time, Leo had seen his own heart clearly. It was time to make a decision. Isabella was baffled. No matter what she did, their ending always seemed to follow the same script. An endless cycle. The last time, after the mountain hike, Leo had changed completely and told her he was leaving. Why? Was anyone going to do anything about this? You're coming with me. You just said you didn't want to see me sad. Does coming with me make you sad? No, but what am I coming with you for? To get away from them. Isabella grabbed Leo and started dragging him away, nearly ripping his jacket. With the other two women watching, Leo was unceremoniously hauled off, leaving them staring at each other. Why are they always like this? Because for those two, the word breakup is as meaningless as a fart. Maybe they'll grow out of it when they're older. They will be like this forever. P.S. That thing about my old book last time wasn't an April Fool's joke. It was really unbanned, and then they locked it up again. The platform is messing with me. Chapter 409, Foot, why didn't you stand firmly on my side in front of Evelyn and Peyton? Because we broke up. How to infuriate Isabella Vance in 5 words or less. Sometimes, there's something to be said for the mystical. You could just say their incompatible star signs were still wreaking havoc. The core conflict between Leo and Isabella seemed to be a power struggle. When their relationship was bound by money, Leo was willing to cede control so they could continue. But the moment they tried to bind their relationship with emotion, it fell apart. Before the Mafia game, when Leo had accepted Isabella, he had chosen a compromise. But Isabella had backstabbed him. Now, Isabella chose to compromise, and Leo wouldn't accept it. No matter which path they chose, it was the wrong one. Leo, why won't you agree? Because the angel and the devil on my shoulders are having a fist fight. Leo wasn't literally schizophrenic. It was just his sense of righteousness warring with his darker, more selfish side. The righteous side, of course, was the one that didn't want to see Isabella compromise. Unlike Peyton and Evelyn, whose lives had arguably improved by being with him, Isabella was different. For her, it was a pure surrender for the sake of love. Life is like a video game with a main quest called survival and countless smaller side quests. Simply put, there's more to life than just love. We can still be friends. Your memory is back. Your wish has been granted. This is a perfect ending, Leo said, genuinely believing it. No regrets. The story of the lounge host and the rich older woman should end here. Perhaps not reaching the finish line was unfortunate, but was becoming a member of his harem really the only fortunate outcome? Leo didn't think so. They were like any normal couple who had met by chance in a sea of people. They were drawn together by each other's strengths, but were forced apart by the complexities of their relationship, eventually returning to the sea. Their story wasn't special. In fact, its trajectory was the same as most couples. Leo could accept this ending. In fact, Leo Miller, the genius host, with 60% of his full memory restored, could tell you with absolute certainty, the fear of loss is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Are you moving out my house? Yes. His eyes had never been so resolute. Before, trapped by his missing memories, his attitude toward Isabella had always been ambiguous. When people feel powerless to solve a problem, they subconsciously pin their hopes on the unknown. Leo had pinned his hopes on his memories. He had a faint feeling that once he remembered everything, his problems with Isabella would be resolved. But reality had just smacked him in the head. Incompatible is incompatible. Forcing a relationship by compromising wasn't a guarantee of eternal happiness. Isabella would still endlessly challenge Evelyn and Peyton. It was her nature, and living a life like that would be miserable not just for her, but for Leo, too. We've been up all night. Want to come back to my place and get some sleep? No. Leo's tone was firm. You still have things in my house. Go get them yourself. You got it. A long-absent smile spread across Leo's face. A long-absent iciness returned to Isabella's. Whether there is meaning in the meeting of two people is a question worth debating. In any case, they had returned to how they were when they first met. One full of humanity. One full of divinity. Heard you caused another scene in Boston. Silas slammed his fist on the table, scrolling through photos on his phone and chuckling. You knocked out Seb Cole's dad's teeth. They were dentures, Leo said, popping open a can of iced Coke. He looked up at Silas. Any idea where Seb is? I saw his Instagram. Kid's already partying in Dubai. Silas had saved the picture and showed it to Leo. You went through all the trouble of crashing the wedding. Did the Vance girl finally surrender? We broke up. Oh, Silas showed no surprise. Next time you crash a wedding, give me a heads up. I want to join in on the fun. There won't be a next time. How can you be so sure? I'm not doing something that's stupid again. Maybe next time she'll be the one crashing your wedding. What? The thought didn't register at first, but the more Leo considered it, the more plausible it seemed. Isabella was always doing the opposite. The idea planted a vivid image in his mind. On a breezy, perfect day, Leo and his future wife are having a beach wedding. Suddenly, a semi-truck with a giant Wedding Crashers banner pulls up. Seb's dad, sporting new dentures, leaps out and starts cursing out Frank Miller. Then Isabella emerges, leading an army from Boston to invade Riverbend. Leo shuddered. God, what a terrifying image. Leo, I really have to admire the energy you young people have. You know she's not going to be with anyone else in this life. Why not just make it work? Why all the drama? I feel inferior, Leo answered frankly, taking a sip of Coke. He always felt inferior around Isabella. Before, his insecurity came from money and social status. Now, it came from the fact that he had no right to be in a relationship. Honestly, didn't he want to try having a real, epic romance with Isabella? He'd crash her wedding, for crying out loud. Of course he wanted to, but the reality was he had no right to even use the word love right now. You've got mistresses on the side, and you're going to talk about love with a straight face? That was insane. From any perspective, she deserves a normal, complete love. I can't give her that. You trying to play the tragic hero here? Silas scoffed, then let out a long sigh. Honestly, some things were just a paradox. If Leo had these thoughts, he could never be with Isabella. But if Leo didn't have these thoughts, would Isabella have ever fallen for him in the first place? What is this thing called love? Just get back to work and be my cash cow. Silas tapped the table and pointed to the door. Stop moping and get your ass to work. Leo muttered a few curses under his breath and headed downstairs, sitting silently under the lanterns. Isabella sat in her empty office, staring at spreadsheets without a word. She had gotten the answer she wanted. The love she had given in the past had been reciprocated. An investment that doesn't demand a return is just charity. This was enough to satisfy her. In her original plan, getting this answer was the goal. Everything else was just a gamble driven by her competitive spirit. Gambles come with significant risks, so it was normal that it didn't pay off. The worst thing in investing is to be ruled by emotion. Once she started framing the situation in the familiar language of her profession, her rationality returned. She began to see the endlessly repeating drama with objective clarity. When her partners on the video conference heard the coldness return to her voice, they were all surprised. Did Isabella get dumped? One of them asked, showing a modicum of concern. Everyone in the company knew she was keeping a boy toy. In the past, a question like that would have earned a vicious tirade. But today, she was strangely calm. She just said flatly, let's not discuss matters unrelated to the meeting. Anger isn't scary. Indifference is. Leo was desperately trying to get his life back on track. So he chose the simplest, most direct method. Work. If you're busy, life falls back into place. Feel the oppressive aura of the genius host. With this incredibly nerdy thought, Leo strode into the courtyard of the Cypress Lounge and was immediately hit by a tidal wave of rumors. The bartender, a young guy named Milo, pulled him aside. Leo, man, You know what everyone's been saying about you lately? That I'm a genius? That you have no shame? What? What did I do? Dude, you didn't even show up for work for weeks, and then you quietly get promoted to partner. That was already enough to make everyone jealous. But the shameless part is, if you're management now, why did you have to go and steal the show at the Starlight Gala? Now everyone hates you. You're only 20, younger than all of us, and you're already management. They could work here until they die, and they'll never be number one. That's not my fault, Leo mumbled, scratching his head and silently cursing Silas. The old man just loved giving him impossible problems. This simmering resentment was a big deal, and also not a big deal. As long as Silas was at the lounge, no one would dare say anything. But if Silas retired, it would become a very big deal. Someone would eventually try to mess with him. I get it. Leo sat alone under the lanterns, worrying. The solution was simple. The most direct way to shut people up is to slap them in the face. Metaphorically, just become number one in sales again and prove them wrong. But that was the old Leo's way of thinking. Effective but extreme. With his memory back, he had more nuanced ways of handling things. After spending so much time around a dominant CEO, you're bound to pick up a few things. 3 days passed in a flash. Isabella was back to her usual hectic schedule. Her flight landed at Riverbend Airport. She stood silently at the terminal entrance. The company car sent to pick her up was late. Her assistant stood beside her, constantly wiping sweat from her own brow. Although she had arranged the schedule perfectly and the driver's tardiness was his fault, this was Isabella Vance. Unforgiving and obsessed with efficiency. Isabella, please let me explain. No need. Isabella flexed her wrist and got into the car, glancing at the profusely sweating driver. The man was a waterfall of apologies. He said his kid had a fever, which delayed him leaving home, and then his car was blocked by an illegally parked vehicle with no contact number. When it rains, it pours. Despite the middle-aged driver's tearful explanation, Isabella's expression remained unchanged. Her assistant jumped in. If you knew there might be unexpected delays, why didn't you plan to leave earlier? I'm so sorry. The assistant's tone was harsh, but she wasn't just a low-level employee bullying another. She was trying to help the driver. Someone had to say these things to emphasize the company's interests. If it came from the assistant, it was just a reprimand. If it came from Isabella herself, the driver was finished. The driver clearly didn't understand these nuances. He wasn't Isabella's personal driver, just one of the company's fleet drivers. He was steady and reliable, but his emotional intelligence was average at best. He just kept repeating the reasons for his delay, sincere but not savvy. The assistant sighed. The best course of action now was to apologize once, then quickly move on. She stared out the window, a little nostalgic for the handsome driver from before. In her eyes, that man, aside from being Isabella's boy toy, was nearly perfect. But he was Isabella's boy toy, which meant she didn't dare cross that line sneak a taste. Sometimes, men and women were the same. A subordinate will covet his boss's mistress. A female subordinate will covet her female boss's boy toy. Mr. Lou, please stop talking and just drive, the assistant sighed, not daring to say more for fear of getting herself in trouble. You keep talking, Isabella said suddenly, her voice flat. Ma'am, what should I talk about? The driver was stunned by the nonspecific command. Which hospital did you take your son to? The clinic downstairs from our apartment. His grandmother is with him, getting a shot. Take him to a proper hospital. Thank you, Ms. Vance. As soon as I drop you at the office, I'll go. Mr. Lou was overjoyed. The assistant also shot a surprised glance at her boss. How strange. Isabella hadn't lost her temper. Don't go to the office. Take us to the clinic now. There's room in the car. Isabella leaned back in her seat and glanced at her assistant. Your bonus for this month is docked. Ms. Vance, The assistant lowered her head in acceptance. She had thought since Isabella was being magnanimous with the driver, she might get a pass too. You haven't taken a vacation in half a year, have you? In the last 127 days, I've only had 10 days off. Take your annual leave. And I'm sending you a round-trip ticket to Indonesia. I'll reimburse you personally. Ms. Vance, you saw my social media feed. Leo, someone mentioned it once, that you post about want to go to Indonesia every 3 days on average. Thank you, Ms. Vance. I'm docking your bonus for one reason only. Don't pull those little tricks in front of me again. The assistant nodded happily. She felt a strange change in Isabella, as if she had gained something new. Empathy. P.S. This chapter isn't finished. I'll add to it tomorrow. I'm back in my hometown to pay respects to my ancestors, typing on my phone. Isabella's story will conclude tomorrow. Chapter 410, Author's Note. It is recommended to read the previous chapter first, as the second half has been supplemented. Vince, my man, were you been making bank lately? Leo said with a grin, pulling a man into the Serenity Room. What bank? You're still young. When you get to my age, you'll get it. How can you make bank when you're buried in loans? Vince didn't exactly fit the stereotype of a host at a place like the Cypress Lounge. He wasn't sleek and preening. Instead, he was a steady, serious-looking 27-year-old. Before Leo, he had been the lounge's top earner. As for the loans, that was debatable. People in the entertainment industry tend to have high expenses, but Leo didn't believe for a second this guy couldn't pay his debts. He was just being discreet about his wealth. Vince, no customers this afternoon. How about a drink? The boss is talking. It'd be disrespectful not to drink. Vince sat down, took a sip from his glass, and said pointedly, "Let me get this round. Don't put it on the lounge's tab." Vince was more aggressive than he looked. The subtext was crystal clear. He was alluding to the fact that Leo's presence was blurring the lines between public and private at the lounge. The Starlight Gala, an event many hosts had looked forward to, had been single-handedly ruined by Leo. Forget how he became a partner. The ambiguity of his role was already a major source of resentment. "Vince, I've already paid for the drinks. Out of my own pocket. It's not easy treating us." It wasn't. A natural conflict existed between Leo and the other hosts. He was the only one who had been hired with zero experience. And then he'd become the top seller. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So while everyone was friendly on the surface, no one actually kept in touch with him outside of work. "I'm not just treating you to this round. I'm treating you to the next one, too." "Vince, I can't hold my liquor. I'll have to pass on the next one." "Why not hear what's on the menu before you decide?" "Oh." Vince looked at Leo skeptically. "Something special? A farm on the outskirts of the city. We need to set up a couple of gatherings there each month," Leo said, sounding more like he was telling a story than talking business. "There are 2 ravens on the farm that need to be fed." A fire lit up in Vince's eyes. He gripped his glass tightly. "As escorts?" "Not at all. People go to the farm to relax. It has nothing to do with us. Besides, who needs an escort at a farm? What the farm needs is someone to feed the ravens." "Bro, I've raised crows before. I think it's pretty much the same thing, right?" "Crows? That makes things difficult." Leo propped his head on his hand, looking troubled. "If it's difficult, then don't." "No, if it's difficult, it still has to be done, Leo." "Vince, you're older than me. You don't have to call me Leo like that. Age doesn't mean anything, Leo. Older means wiser. Younger means sharper." Their eyes met, and they both broke into similar smiles. Vince spoke first, no longer mentioning the farm. Instead, shifting to a more personal tone. "Leo, since you call me bro, I should look out for you. How's life been treating you lately?" "Not great. Can't get a good night's sleep." "Something on your mind?" "Not really. It's just that when I sleep, my ears get red. I feel like someone's talking about me behind my back." "That was probably us last night. We were talking about you over drinks. Maybe that's why you couldn't sleep." "Wow, Vince, you work so hard and still have time for drinks after." "Just a few friends from work getting together. We'll invite you next time." Vince emphasized the word work. Leo picked up on it immediately. "Friend from work? Who all was there?" he asked, putting on a curious face like he was just trying to catch up on office gossip. "There was Al and I forget the others." "Really? Whether I forgot or not, I have to forget. Otherwise, the lounge is going to be half empty." Leo smiled knowingly and tapped the table. "Not enough quantity, so we'll make up for it with quality?" "And what do you mean by quality?" "Just hearing some gossip, of course." "How juicy was it?" "I think I'll mention some club with good benefits. Said the Starlight Gala was ruined by one bad apple, so we might as well jump ship. He's always full of hot air, so we thought he was bluffing, but turns out the benefits at that club are actually pretty good." Vince seemed to be drunk, slurring his words as he leaned on the table. "Leo, you interested in jumping ship? We could all go together. I may be the bad apple, but did you forget I'm also a partner now?" Leo replied calmly, as if reading from a script. "Oh man, drinking makes me say stupid things. My bad, Leo. Don't be mad." Vince coughed. "Actually, not only are you not at fault, you've done a great service." "What service?" "Even a small temple can be a deep, bottomless lake," Vince said, a look of understanding on his face. He made a long, straight gesture in the air. "I get it. A kingmaker's reward. That's treasonous talk. We're not exactly doing respectable work here, are we?" "All right, Vince. I've treated you, but I'm not keeping you. Feel free to go. You got this round. What about the next? Remember to buy 2 rabbits as a greeting gift for the ravens." "I'll buy a whole truckload." Vince stumbled to the door, then turned back and sat down again, whispering, "Leo, just curious. What's the play today? You like movies?" "I'll watch them. Remember The Godfather's 3 moves?" Vince shook his head, patted his forehead, and walked out, heading to his own private room. He sat down heavily and wiped the cold sweat from his brow. "Damn, Leo had grown up. Of course, he knew the Godfather's 3 moves. Make an offer, send a message, recruit for the family. Silas, how did I get fired? Al, the epitome of the slick entertainment industry stereotype, knocked on the second-floor door. Silas, hidden behind a screen, was brewing tea. He gestured for Al to sit. Silas, I knew this wasn't your decision. After all these years with you, it's because you've been with me for all these years that you get to taste my best-a-hong pao. Most people just get fired. What? Silas said. Al stared at Silas's face. In this line of work, reading people was a basic skill. He could see Silas wasn't joking, but he couldn't get angry at him. He could only protest indirectly. Silas, if you want me to leave, I won't complain. But why did Leo have to be the one to tell me? You're lucky he told you at all. He didn't even tell me. Huh? Al's face was a mask of confusion. In fact, Silas really hadn't known. If Al hadn't come storming in, he'd still be watching live streams in peace. Silas, I know Leo has a small stake, but isn't this overstepping? It is. I'm planning on yelling at him later. So what about me, Silas? Finish your tea, go to accounting, get your severance. We'll give you everything you're owed. Then pack your things and go. Hearing the final verdict, Al looked up in disbelief. He was a true actor. Tears instantly streamed down his face. Silas, I'm not sad about leaving. I'm sad to see you being bullied by that little punk Leo. Get out, get out. Don't get your snot on my teacup, Silas said, exasperated, giving Al a little push. Leo wasn't the type to overstep. The kid was 90% certain to be getting revenge on him. His plan for the Starlight Gala had been a trap. Whether Isabella had acted or not, Leo would have been number one. It was a way to stir up internal conflict and force Leo to transition from host to leader. Real life wasn't a video game where you get a title and everyone listens to you. To get people to listen, you have to show them how you operate. What truly surprised Silas was how quickly Leo had acted. The kid's famously soft-hearted. How did he? Silas knew Leo like a farmer knows his own fields. Leo's powerful empathy was a strength, what made him so human. But there are no absolute strengths. The flip side was that he was soft. He was always willing to see things from other people's perspectives. In romance, that was a superpower, the ultimate charm. But in business, it didn't work. Sometimes business was just about who could be more ruthless. Who's been advising him? Silas scratched his head, puzzled. At the front desk. Jenny, want to be my little puppy? Leo, do you hear the words coming out of your mouth? Jenny looked up at him. Her expression a mix of confusion and something else. An image flashed in her mind. She blushed. You're taking what I said the wrong way. But Leo, what you said was already way off. I'll grant you one wish. In return, you keep me in the loop on everything that happens in the lounge. Leo, I'd tell you anyway, even without a wish. Jenny giggled, looked around, and beckoned him closer. Vince got a new client, she whispered. 60 years old. Found out last week she was pregnant. What? She hasn't gone through menopause yet? That's what I was wondering. And even if she hasn't, the egg viability would be terrible. Maybe Vince is just that good. Leo and Jenny whispered, gossiping. Al got drunk and started calling Julian Miller mommy. Julian is chasing the bartender, Milo. He spent 37 grand on him in 1 week. Leo listened, thoroughly entertained. Finally, he looked up satisfied. Good job, puppy. Leo. Jenny punched him playfully on the arm. If you can give me Isabella's contact info, I'll tell you everything. She doesn't even like to chat. What would you do with it? You don't understand my admiration for her. Even just having her as a contact, without ever talking, would make me so proud. I'll ask her. If she's not okay with it, I can't just give it out. Don't ask her later. She's about to get here. Huh? Her? Jenny nodded. She called the front desk to make a reservation. Leo wanted to ask more, but reality didn't give him time. A familiar click-clack of high heels echoed through the lounge. He looked up with a sigh. In the Serenity room. You don't seem very happy to see me. I wasn't very happy to see you the first time either. Why? Because I could tell you'd be hard to handle. Leo lit some incense and placed it on the corner of the table, looking at her suspiciously. It's the middle of the afternoon. What are you doing here? It's my day off. Isabella sat with her knees together on the tatami mat. I have a question for you. Go on. One of my drivers, his kid, was sick. I provided him with some conveniences and gave him some help. Hey, that's great. But what do I do with this? Isabella said, clearly troubled. She pulled a drawing and a thank you card out of her purse. The drawing was simple, a sketch of her on a piece of printer paper. The only reason he knew was Isabella. Who drew this? Why are the eyes completely colored in with blue? Leo couldn't stop laughing at the blue-eyed monster on the paper. The thank you card was just as simple, written in a child's scrawl, with a big smiley face at the end. Thank you, Sister Isabella. I want to be a kind, gentle, and loving person like you when I grow up. Leo read the letter aloud, laughing harder with every word. Stop laughing. I don't know what to do now. A kid thank you. Just accept it. But what should I give as a return gift? A return gift? Leo was genuinely stunned now. The fact that Isabella was stressing over a child's thank you card was surprising enough. The fact that she wanted to give a gift in return was mind-boggling. Why do you need to give a return gift? It's proper etiquette. The kid just wanted to thank you. You don't need to overthink it. But if I don't give a gift, will the child be sad? Isabella leaned back, her face clouded with worry. He had never seen her this stressed, not even over billion-dollar deals. Oh my God, whoever is possessing Isabella Vance's body, get out of her now. Leo's face was a picture of disbelief. This was too much. Isabella was actually starting to care about other people's feelings. Don't look at me like that, she said, seeing his expression. She waved her hands, tried to explain. That little girl is very pitiful. She has a congenital disease and has spent most of her life in the hospital. She just started getting better. How about we go visit her? Leo asked, a playful smile on his face. Okay. Isabella nodded without hesitation. This is what you came here for, isn't it? Why didn't you just call and ask? Isabella had indeed come for this reason. Communicating with a child was clearly outside her skill set, but she couldn't just ask Leo for help. I came to hire you, not to ask for your help. P.S. I still haven't finished writing Isabella's part here because I want to add more sweet content. It will be finished in the next day or two. I'll give you a toothache. Riverbend General Hospital. Watching Leo coax a fit of giggles from the little girl in the hospital bed, Isabella Vance felt the tension in her own shoulders release. A wave of relief washed over her. Stella, pinky promise, Leo said, leaning in close. When you get out of here, I'll come pick you up. Deal. The pale-faced girl on the bed extended her tiny hand, reaching for Leo's pinky. But it wasn't Leo's finger that met hers. It was Isabella's, guided there by Leo's firm hand. For a child, a pinky promise was as binding as any contract. I'll take you to the amusement park, Leo continued. Back in the day, I was the king of the short wall at the old playground. That whole area was my turf. Wow, you're so cool. Stella clapped her hands excitedly. Is she coming too? She's asking you. You coming or not? Leo glanced over his shoulder, catching Isabella's evasive eyes. I'm not. Should I? You should. Then I will. Yay. Stella cheered, her innocence lighting up the sterile room. Mr. Lou, the driver, watched the happy scene by the bedside, a genuine smile spreading across his face. You really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Ms. Vance wasn't nearly as cold as the rumors made her out to be. Not bad, Leo said later, as they stood under a sycamore tree outside, warm light dappling through the leaves. You're starting to care what other people think. I don't. Then why did you come see Stella? Caring what other people think just leads to anxiety. You're not wrong, Leo agreed, leaning against the trunk and watching the people pass by. But caring just the right amount can bring you joy. I'm not feeling any joy. Don't think I didn't see you hiding that fond smile back there. Isabella shook her head, trying to deny it. That kind of soft, maternal smile felt so out of place on her sculpted, icy features. But it had been there. It was an involuntary human reaction to something pure and innocent. Truthfully, Isabella wasn't sure what she was feeling. At first, it was just sympathy for her driver, a sense that a child's well-being was important. But when she'd arrived at the hospital and seen that small, frail face, and after Mr. Lou had handed her the thank you drawing from his daughter, she felt a pull to do something more. When you change someone's perception of you by doing something good, you get positive emotional feedback, Leo said, timing his words perfectly. He looked at her, a knowing glint in his eye. Because Stella thinks you're a warm, kind person, you're now working to maintain that image. You make me sound so calculating. Your motive is to not let a little girl's wish fall flat. That, in turn, makes you happy. I wasn't thinking that. Fine. I'll go back in and tell Stella that her dear Isabella couldn't care less about her. That you're actually a ruthless capitalist who should be strung up from a lamppost. And the only reason you visited was to make her dad work even harder for you. Don't you dare. Huh. Leo grinned, still leaning against the tree. Playful, endearing, made you want to mess with her. In the warmth of the afternoon sun, watching this Tsundra reveal another side of herself, Leo was struck by a thought. Since his amnesia, he and Isabella had been tangled up for so long, but they'd never really taken the time to just observe each other's lives. Every time they met, it felt like they were stuck in an endless debate. Get back together or break up for good. But even Leo had forgotten a fundamental truth. If a couple breaks up, it means there were problems. If the core problems don't change, getting back together is just a fantasy. The right way to reconcile wasn't Isabella's brute force approach of relentlessly hammering on the get back together button. It was about letting the other person see a genuine, fundamental change in your core. A real change, not a temporary act. It was like if you spent every waking hour ignoring your girlfriend to play video games. The solution wasn't to quit gaming. You'd never stick with that. It was all an act. The solution was to show her you'd learn moderation. So, had Isabella actually changed? Definitely. Otherwise, how could she have suddenly transformed from an ice queen into someone who cared about a little girl's opinion? But Leo hadn't noticed. Or rather, Isabella had never shown him. It made sense. When you're faced with someone you know so well, you instinctively fall back into familiar patterns. Isabella, show me how you've changed. My changes? She looked up, utterly baffled. I haven't changed. Come with me. If he left it up to her, she'd never be able to articulate it. Leo had his own methods. Riverbend Estates. The corner stop. It wasn't just the neighborhood convenience store. It was a top-tier intelligence agency. Retired old-timers, parents watching their kids play outside. On any given sunny day, they would all spontaneously materialize here. Hey, everyone, Leo announced, pulling a plastic stool over for Isabella and grabbing a corn-flavored ice cream bar from the freezer. He went straight for the bombshell. I'd like you to meet my girlfriend. We're getting married next month. Oh, my word, isn't she a beautiful girl? Come here, dear, let Annie get a look at you. Are those what they call colored contacts in your eyes? Riverbend Estates was an old neighborhood with few new residents over the years. This crew of grandmas and grandpas had literally watched Leo grow up. Most of them had seen him running around in split crotch pants. There's a special kind of bond that comes from having known someone since they were in diapers. Isabella handled the initial wave of enthusiasm without any obvious discomfort. She wasn't some naive girl. She navigated far more intense social gatherings. She nodded politely in response to their comments. But when one of the women affectionately placed a hand on hers, she stiffened. This gesture, so far outside the bounds of formal social etiquette, was completely foreign to her. Are you from Riverbend, dear? What do your parents do for work? How many kids in your family? Hearing this, Isabella's mind immediately began to analyze the woman's intentions, a basic survival skill for children of wealthy families, where personal information was a closely guarded commodity. I'm from Boston, she answered smoothly. My family just runs a regular business. Boston's a great city. My grandson stayed in Boston after college. Makes a six-figure salary. The conversation veered so sharply Isabella got whiplash. Weren't they just talking about her? How did it suddenly become about this woman's grandson? Just go with it, Leo murmured, watching her with an amused smile. There's no agenda here. It's just people talking. He figured the best way to understand Isabella was to think of her as a royal princess. It explained her entire personality. For a princess, family isn't really family. You can't expect your father, the king, to treat you like a normal dad. You're lucky if he doesn't use you as a political pawn. If you can't even open up to your own family, how could you ever trust an outsider? Every unexpected display of affection is a Trojan horse, because your inherent value is always in play. Her divinity and her defensiveness both stemmed from this, a cold, rational distrust and the instinct to strike back. But this place was different. Leo watched Mrs. Gable, who was still bragging about her grandson's job, Mr. Henderson, who was trying to one-up her by bringing up his son who'd settled down in D.C., Mr. Peterson, who was ignoring all of them and stubbornly complaining about the useless property management, and the other women who were quietly debating whether Isabella or Summer Lynn was prettier. This was the world of ordinary people. Emotions were raw, expressions were real, and there were no hidden motives. Human virtues and flaws were on full display. After their brief bragging session, the women returned to the main topic. Leo, if you're getting married, when are you planning on having kids? That's up to her, Leo said, pointing at Isabella. I say have them soon, while your mom's still young enough to help out. It's so exhausting for young people to raise kids on their own. My grandson's wife is due in May, Mrs. Gable said, nudging Isabella's arm. She leaned in conspiratorially. So, when are you planning on having a baby? Isabella froze. She looked up at Leo, silently pleading for help. When the old-timers saw this, they erupted in a chorus of good-natured laughter. Leave her be. The new bride is shy. Isabella looked around at their smiling faces, speechless. Here, she had no title. No one knew who she was. The only reason they were even talking to her was because of Leo. She'd never seen anything like this. She'd only read about these kinds of neighborhood hubs online. She'd never lived in a small town or even a normal residential complex. No wonder princesses in stories always fell for the adventurer. The adventurer with his muddy boots and ripped pants was never as handsome as the prince from the neighboring kingdom. So why did the princess love him? Because he showed her a world she'd never seen before. It was that simple. All right, Annie, my wife here is a bit shy. Oh, listen to you. No shame at all. Calling her your wife already. Does she even want you to call her that? Mr. Henderson teased. He looked at Isabella. Do you? Leo lowered his head to look at her. Isabella's face instantly turned a deep crimson, as exposed and raw as the earth under a setting sun. She hid her face behind Leo's back, her hands clutching his shirt tightly, refusing to let go. All traces of her old self were gone. A person's behavior is a product of their identity, experiences, and personality. In this strange new territory, under the new identity of Leo's wife, this was the only way she could react. Like a shy new bride. Leo looked at Isabella's flushed face, unable to hide the smile spreading across his own. Emotion is an innate human ability. Those who discard it for pure rationality have always had unusual lives. From a moment the all-too-human Leo Miller walked into Isabella Vance's world, her personal transformation had already begun, regardless of whether their feelings for each other remained. In the end, people have to live like people. Did you just take me there to watch me get embarrassed? How was that embarrassing? I thought it was cute. Leo's teasing earned him a sharp jab to the ribs. She hit surprisingly hard. Stop it. I'm taking you home. Okay. The job you hired me for only included the hospital visit. Bringing you to the neighborhood was a bonus. Can I hire you for a little longer? My work hours for today are over. I want to go home and play some video games. Doesn't your work give you a sense of accomplishment? Seeing you blush like that gave me a huge sense of accomplishment. Leo's smile was radiant. He genuinely felt it. From the ice-cold mask at their first meeting to this deep blush, it had taken him over a year. It was more satisfying than beating any dating sim. What game could ever create a character this challenging? This is awesome, he thought, humming a little tune as he walked ahead. This is even better than being in a relationship. He felt so happy he could forgive the whole world. Even if someone were to walk up and punch him in the face right now, he wouldn't hold it against them. What the hell? Leo crumpled to the ground, clutching his nose. He pulled his hand away and saw blood smeared on his palm. Dazed, he looked up. A drunk man was standing over him, flipping him the bird. It was Al, the host from the lounge. Leo, I got a mortgage, a car loan, and credit cards that add up to almost $7,000 a month. You just fire me like that? Yeah, I'm going to teach you some respect today. AL's eyes were bloodshot as he lunged forward again. But he was stopped mid-stride. A plain white van parked on the side of the road burst open and several men rushed out, grabbing Al. Bro, calm down. Don't do it, they muttered, holding him in an iron grip. Al, I could handle you bad-mouthing me behind my back, Leo said, wiping the blood from his nose with his sleeve. He didn't get up to fight back, didn't even curse. His voice was calm, but trying to convince the entire staff to quit? Nobody would tolerate that. It was just drunk talk. Who takes that seriously? I do, Leo said simply, dusting himself off. As for your debt, that's your problem. Whose life isn't hard? He gave a slight wave of his hand. The men holding Al quickly dragged him away. They were Frank Miller's guys. They'd been tailing Al the whole time. Trouble at the lounge? Isabella asked, coming over to inspect his face. The staff doesn't respect me yet. I had to make an example of someone. Making an example won't be enough. You also have to, I know. Make them an offer. Send a message. Make them loyal. You taught me that, Professor. Isabella looked into Leo's eyes and sighed softly, as if remembering something. I didn't expect you to be so ruthless, Leo. I actually get where he's coming from. I had to go easy on him. I gave him a chance. If he hadn't come after me today, he would have gotten a generous severance package. It's amazing how a change in role can change a person. You're the one who told me that sometimes, if you don't look at things from a position of power, you'll be the one who gets screwed. Leo looked up at her, a smile playing on his lips. There, at the entrance to the all-too-familiar Riverbend Estates, they looked at each other and laughed softly. Maybe they were thinking of the first time they met. Maybe they were remembering Brutus with his food bowl. Who cared? Isabella quietly linked her arm with his, and they started walking down the street. The days stretched on, long and slow, like a road with no visible end. The way people connect is just that simple. They were in another cycle, starting from the beginning, passing through long tribulations, and eventually stepping into the next phase of life. Whether they were together or not, whether they ever saw each other again, didn't matter. Because for this man and woman on the sidewalk, currently arguing over whether to get spicy noodle soup or barbecue for dinner, they were a bridge to each other's worlds. Each of them held a universe the other didn't know. When curiosity fades, perhaps the arguments will begin anew. But the parts of them that change because of the other, the habits, the tastes, the personalities, those would never fade. The part of me that you changed will always be here, standing in for you by my side. When Leo heard the words bad flu over the phone, his mind went blank for a second. In his memory, Isabella Vance had never been sick a day in her life. I have a fever, and I'm too weak to get out of bed. Could you please come feed the dog? Feed the dog, or feed you. You don't have to come to the house. You could just feed him in the yard. It's no trouble. I can feed you while I'm at it. The words hung in the air. A long silence stretched over the line. After more than 10 seconds, a very faint came through. Leo hung up, a smile on his face. He was sitting at Dr. Evelyn Shaw's dining table. He quickly stuffed the rest of a donut into his mouth and stood up to leave, only to turn and meet a pair of resentful eyes from the corner of the room. She looked like an abandoned kitten. You said you were going to spend the day with me. Evelyn stood there, looking utterly pitiful. I'll be right back. I'm just going to check on the situation. If it's really serious, I'll take her to the hospital. Are you sure you'll be back? A person like Isabella hates showing any vulnerability. She definitely won't want me hanging around for long, Leo said with absolute certainty. He had evidence for this. The Isabella in his memories wouldn't even let anyone see her cry, let alone see her sick. I'm telling you, back in the day, Isabella would. And you know that was back in the day. Evelyn emerged from the corner, her face a mask of reluctance. Still, she walked over and straightened the collar of his jacket. Are you going to tell me you haven't noticed how much she's changed? Wait, you guys can all see she's changed. You can't see the forest for the trees. Evelyn's explanation was convincing. Otherwise, why do you think someone with that much pride would keep coming after you, again and again, after you lost your memory? She sighed softly. So, what's the latest with you two? We broke up. For good. But it sounds to me like you're communicating more sweetly now than you did before you broke up. Leo scratched his head, thinking it over. He replayed yesterday in his mind. He suddenly realized Evelyn was right. From his perspective, Isabella was becoming more and more endearing. Before, going to see her was a chore that required mental preparation. But now he actually felt a pang of wanted to see her. Watching Leo scratch his head in confusion, Evelyn allowed a tiny, unobserved smile to grace her lips. Intel gathered successfully, she thought. He's falling for her again. That makes 3 times now, Leo. It's only when we are vulnerable that we understand what is precious. Isabella didn't know how it happened. Sometime in the middle of the night, she'd woken up feeling hot, her limbs heavy and weak. She'd held out until now. A flu was a common enough illness, but not for her. Her health was excellent. Before coming to Riverbend alone, she'd had a private doctor in Boston managing her health. After arriving, her lifestyle had become chaotic for a while, but Leo had saved her. After Leo left, she faced immense work pressure, unhealthy eating habits, occasional hangovers, and chronic insomnia. The only reason her body had held up this long was thanks to the strong foundation she'd built since childhood. You don't need to search for the answer to whether you're compatible with someone. Life gives you the answer. But Isabella refused to accept it. The moment she thought of Leo's love being divided among so many people, the pain became unbearable. So she resisted calling him. It was only when she faintly heard Brutus rattling his food bowl outside that she reluctantly made the call. As for whether Leo would actually come into the house to see her, she didn't care at all. She had a fever after all. She didn't remember that Leo had the passcode and her fingerprint for the door. She didn't remember her soft on the phone. And she pretended not to hear the heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. She resolutely turned over, not wanting to speak to the man behind her. No one spoke. The man behind her didn't even seem to be breathing. A nameless fire ignited inside her. I'm this vulnerable, and this is how you treat me? She kicked off the covers, her long limbs clad in black silk pajamas fully exposed to the air. Still no sound from behind her. Isabella knew this bastard loved to see her surrender. So, without turning around, she struggled to sit up and crawl to the edge of the bed, forcing the window open. A cold wind gusted into the room. Still nothing. Isabella shook her dizzy head, closed her eyes, and let herself fall back limply onto the bed. With her last ounce of strength, she rolled over, trying to let herself slide hazily to the floor. She could already feel the cold would inches away. Her legs went first. It would hurt less than falling flat. And still, the man said nothing. Just before she hit the ground, she frowned and glanced toward the bedroom door. The door was closed. No one had come in at all. The next second, the door swung open. A familiar face stood in the doorway, looking at Isabella, half on the bed and half on the floor. He tilted his head, his eyes wide with a confused expression, looking exactly like that confused Nick Young meme. What are you doing? Leo walked over, baffled, and reached out to help her up. Isabella swatted his hand away. She closed her eyes, muttering, "You did it on purpose. You came in and then left again just to laugh at me." "I just got here," Leo said, genuinely confused. He really had just arrived. Brutus had been so hungry he looked like he was about to eat his own food bowl. Leo hadn't even glanced at the dog before rushing straight to the bedroom. "Whoa, are you hallucinating from the fever?" He looked at the kicked-off covers and the open window, letting in the cold air. "I don't even know what to say to you. You have a fever, and you open the window and throw off your blankets. Leave me alone. I'll just freeze to death." "Huh?" Leo looked down at her in disbelief. He was all too familiar with this line of reasoning. He used to do the same thing as a kid. Whenever his mom scolded him, he'd kick off his blankets in a huff, thinking he'd just let himself freeze. Why? Because he felt wronged. An unstoppable smile spread across Leo's face. He instinctively pressed his hand to her forehead, but he'd just been gripping the cold handlebars of his e-scooter. His hand was freezing. Anything would feel hot. Feeling his touch, Isabella shook her head to get away from him. "Get off me." Leo ignored her. He knelt by the bed, lowered his head, and gently pressed his own warm cheek to her forehead. In that instant, Isabella's eyes fluttered open. She stared at the man's neck, so close to her face, her mind a complete blank. "Are you upset because I took too long to get here?" "No." She shook her head, but her voice was already trembling with tears. "Next time, tell me sooner, you hear?" Isabella wanted to argue, but looking into his eyes, she couldn't muster the strength. All her feelings of being wronged vanished. She placed her hand on his, and he instinctively took it in his. The tears streamed down her face. She hadn't cried when she was burning up all night. She hadn't cried while tossing and turning in bed. Only now, with Leo standing in front of her, did she cry. Why is it always when I'm at my most vulnerable that I miss you the most? Leo didn't realize until they got to the hospital that a nasty flu was going around. Isabella's case was a direct result of a terrible lifestyle and a weakened immune system. She probably caught it when they went to the food truck alley yesterday. The infusion room was packed. They had to sit in the hallway to get her for drip. Isabella wasn't feeling much better. She was still completely drained, slumped in the chair wearing a baggy sweatsuit Leo had thrown on her, not moving an inch. "Leo, who are you?" He looked at the woman approaching, holding in 4-pole and wearing a face mask. He didn't recognize her at all. "It's me, Chloe." "Oh," Leo said, but he still had no idea. He knew at least 10 Chloes. "I work for Peyton." "Oh," Leo dragged the sound out, trying to signal that he remembered. He didn't. The Afterglow Lounge had tons of staff. How was he supposed to know who this was? The girl, Chloe, probably realized he was clueless. But taking off her mask now would seem rude. She had to keep explaining. "Leo, I tried to ask you out before." "Oh." Now, he was even more lost. Plenty of girls had asked him out. "Leo, your roommate, Dave." "Oh, it's you," Leo exclaimed, finally placing her. "Dave was a total simp for you. Should have led with that," he thought. "Tell me you asked me out. I'm not going to remember. Tell me my buddy was your simp, and I'll never forget. I'm saving that story for the slideshow at his wedding." Chloe was the girl from the karaoke night mixer they'd had before winter break. The protagonist of the infamous Dave eavesdropping at the door incident. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Leo, I'm just..." Looking around, Chloe was speechless. She had a needle in her arm. She was here for drip, obviously. This guy had never paid her an ounce of attention. "Well, have fun looking around. The gastroenterology department has a great view." Leo didn't spare her another glance, turning his attention back to the dozing Isabella. When he looked up again, Chloe was still there. "Why are you still here?" "Leo, can I ask you for a favor?" "Go ahead. But if it's too much trouble, don't." "It's not. I'm just here alone, and I want to take a nap. Could you maybe just keep an eye on my 4-bag for me?" Chloe asked, summoning her courage. Her opportunities to see Leo were few and far between. Even with another girl by his side, she didn't want to waste this chance. The moment the words left her mouth, she felt a distinct chill in the air, a killing intent. She looked up and met the gaze of the woman who was now watching her silently. Though the woman's face was pale and she looked unwell, the coldness in her eyes sent a shiver down Chloe's spine. "Hey, don't get the wrong idea," Chloe said quickly. "Leo and I are just friends." Hearing that, Leo knew Chloe was done for. Isabella didn't need to be an expert on spotting manipulation. "I'm just his friend. Please." If Leo got too friendly with a stray dog, Isabella would get jealous. "Get out." The words hit Chloe with the force of a slap, leaving no room for argument. She managed a strained smile, turned, and sat down in a chair across the hallway. She quickly snapped a photo and sent it to Peyton. Peyton, I just saw Leo. Oh, is he sick? The girl he's with is sick. He's taking care of her. Oh, Peyton didn't say anything else, simply forwarding an article. Riverbend's top 10 outstanding young entrepreneurs. Chloe compared the face in the article with the face of the woman across from her. Suddenly, her world came crashing down. When the fever was bad, every time she closed her eyes, she saw a tangled ball of thread. Hazy memories drifted through her mind. She didn't know when, exactly, the feeling of being wronged had started to creep into her heart. It was a long time ago. It started when she wanted to fulfill Leo's wish, but he stubbornly insisted on bringing back Summer Lynn's dog. She thought, this man is perfect in every way, but why does he have to split his heart in two? Later, she changed her mind. His heart wasn't split in two. It was shattered into so many pieces she couldn't even count them. A new name would pop up out of nowhere. And the most frustrating part was that they were all just like her. Leo was like an angel walking the earth, saving flawed souls and collecting their hearts along the way. And he was happy about it. Isabella couldn't stand it. So she tried countless ways to possess him completely. They all failed. She had no choice but to reach this point. I won't give up. The words escaped Isabella's lips in a feverish haze, and the sound of her own voice startled her awake. She looked around. In the noisy hospital corridor, people rushed past without a second glance. There were children crying, patients groaning, nurses shouting, families sighing. In this unfamiliar environment, she felt a sudden, heart-pounding fear, a disoriented panic upon waking. Need to use the bathroom? And then there was this idiot standing in front of her. Like a magician, he pulled an assortment of bottles and jars from under his coat. I'll come prepared. If it's a big one, use this. Small one, this. There's also an extra-large opening. Leo held up a large soda bottle and a smaller one. Then, with a conspiratorial wink, he produced a bucket. Who took the mop bucket from by the door? A janitor's angry shout echoed from down the hall. Leo instantly panicked, trying to hide the bucket behind his body. Across the hall, Chloe watched, completely bewildered. But Isabella understood. There was no reason for Leo's bizarre behavior. He was just bored, his brain had short-circuited, he imagined this scenario. And so he did it. Sit down. Oh, right. Leo sat down, rubbing the back of his head. Isabella leaned her head against his shoulder and, without warning, started to laugh. The existence of someone like Leo was proof that AI could never replace humans. Because none of this was logical. There was no reason for it. Even an AI couldn't figure out why he did what he did. That's what made him so human. Just like their relationship, it would always end for some inexplicable reason. But no matter how many times it ended, she would always fall in love with him again. And it would start, inexplicably, all over again. Incompatible birth charts, conflicting personalities, compromises, and principles. Who cared about any of that? Right now, they were sitting in a hospital hallway, surrounded by a chaotic crowd, leaning on each other in silence. An isolated island, cut off from the rest of the world. And they were falling for each other all over again. Love has infinite possibilities. Back at the villa, Isabella was feeling a little better after the 4 drip. But not by much. She needed a few more days of treatment. Fever's broken. 98. 2, Leo said, looking at the thermometer. He was both happy and a little disappointed. Happy, of course, that the fever was gone. Disappointed because I wanted to experience 101. 6. Even in her weakened state, Isabella knew Leo too well. One look at his eyes, and she knew exactly what he was thinking. Leo's threshold for excitement was ridiculously high. You had to give him something stimulating to get his attention. Don't even say it. Caught. Leo looked away, embarrassed. It was one thing to have a depraved thought, but to act on it would be monstrous. Do you want to try? That's probably not a good idea. I'm feeling much better. Still not appropriate. Don't you know you're supposed to sweat out a fever? Isabella's hair was a mess, falling across her face, her blue eyes visible through the strands. A fragile, wasted ice queen. The contrast was electric. And when she said those words, the entire atmosphere in the room shifted. A man and a woman, alone in a room. The air itself seemed to turn a hazy, seductive purple. The little devil on Leo's shoulder started whispering. The temperature of an ultra-vulnerable dominant CEO. Don't you want to feel it? He really did. You know why the maid costume hadn't worked before? Because all she'd done was change her clothes. A real maid would bow and say, "Welcome home, master." But she wore the outfit with the same icy expression. To Leo, it was like playing dress-up with a doll. He felt nothing. It was almost funny. But now, with all these other factors in play, lost in his fantasy, Leo suddenly saw Isabella stand up. "You're sick, don't move around." "I'm going to change." "Change into what?" You've been staring at the closet for the last 5 minutes. Even with his thick skin, Leo felt his face flush. No, don't. Really, tell me if you want it or not, Isabella said, standing barefoot on the floor, her expression calm. The streetlight from outside cast a diagonal slash of light across her face. I really want it. What kind of saint could resist this? Leo certainly couldn't. Then you can keep wanting it. Isabella abruptly turned, walked back to the bed, and lay down without moving. She had no other motive. This was pure, unadulterated revenge. I spent days trying to seduce you, and you didn't react at all. Now that you're finally interested, you think I'm not going to make you pay. Sweating helps with the symptoms. I don't feel that uncomfortable right now. That's not what you said a minute ago. Well, it's what I'm saying now. Isabella propped her head up on her hand, lying on her side to look at him. A mischievous glint danced in her long, narrow eyes. Do you like this? It's not my favorite thing in the world, Leo said, too proud to admit defeat. Oh, then let's go to sleep. Fine. You sleep in the guest room, so I don't get you sick. I'm not afraid of getting sick, but I don't want to get you sick. Watching the explosive frustration build on Leo's face, the amusement in Isabella's eyes grew stronger. This was fun. She had unintentionally unlocked a new skill. For the demographic that appreciated the queen stepping on your face with a high heel fantasy, Isabella's playful torment was hitting all the right buttons. She was their holy grail. Leo, she purred. Tell me, do you want it? Poor Leo, being played like a fiddle. Except that was impossible. Leo could fail at anything in life, but when it came to women, he refused to believe he could lose. Was she kidding? I don't want it anymore. Leo turned and walked away. I've already got the reputation of a scumbag. I'm already keeping mistresses. If I let myself get played like this, then I've learned nothing. There were other fish in the sea. Come back. Beg me. Please. No emotion. I don't like it. Please, master. That's still not. Huh. Leo froze at the bedroom door, a statue in a snowstorm. As if seeing a ghost behind him, he turned his head with a look of sheer terror, trying to process the unbelievable reality. The world had gone mad. Isabella Vance was calling someone master. She was willing to say it, but he couldn't bring himself to believe it. Hey now, if you want me to call you master, I'm not going to do it. Leo decided it was easier to process this if he framed it as Isabella's queen fetish flaring up. I'll call you that. Are you asking me to enter a suicide pact? Leo's eyes darted around the room in panic. Okay, I knew this was a trap. All right, assassins, stop hiding and come on out. You're a lunatic, Leo. Isabella rolled her eyes and shifted to the edge of the bed. She hooked her long legs around his waist and pulled him back. Her voice was laced with meaning. You like hearing me say that, don't you? Honestly, it feels a little like I'm walking a tightrope, but who doesn't love the thrill of dancing on a wire? If you want to hear it, I'll say it all night long. You be screaming all night long anyway. I meant, I'll call you master. Oh, right. You should be more specific, causing misunderstandings like that. Leo scratched his head. This was a good thing, but something fell off. You want something, don't you? If I didn't, why would I say it? Isabella revealed her true motive, pulling him closer with her legs. She whispered, you have to answer a question for me. Let's hear it. Why did you sleep with me before the car accident? That, well, in the story you told, wasn't it because I wanted to help you rebuild your self-confidence? Leo's voice grew quieter as he spoke, his face turning red. He who has a clear conscience fears no ghosts at midnight. He felt ashamed just saying the words. They were just too hypocritical, too flimsy. Even Leo knew it. He was never some pure-hearted saint. Spouting a noble reason like helping someone build confidence put him on the same level as Gandhi in the realm of carnal relations. But that was just Isabella's version of the story, told from her perspective. She couldn't have known his real thoughts. His real thoughts were buried in his recovered memories. Isabella's eyes were filled with undisguised curiosity. She had wanted to know the answer for a very, very long time. A girl's first time is a momentous occasion. Every girl hopes that when she gives that precious gift away, she knows what the man is truly thinking. But the day after her first time, Leo was hit by a car, and then he lost his memory. How could she ever have asked? The temptation in her voice was like a devil's whisper. Leo gritted his teeth, struggling. But then she stopped asking. Seeing the look on his face, she had her answer. She had been willing to give him her first time, but she hoped that when he accepted it, it wasn't because it was for her own good, but because he liked her. Isabella smiled slyly and pulled Leo onto the bed. Leo, she said, I think my fever's back. I don't need to touch you to know you're burning up. Burning from fever, or just burning for you. Isabella had never been one for subtlety. Stop. The temperature in the room continued to rise. The only sound were clothes being tossed to the floor, the rustle of sheets, and the whisper of skin on cotton. Oh, and the clang of a metal bowl. In the yard, a starving Brutus paced back and forth with his food bowl in his mouth. Seriously, where's my dinner? There are condoms in the cabinet, right? Leo, shirtless, looked down at the woman so close to him. Her exhausted expression couldn't hide her stunning beauty. Her features were so defined. They were inches apart. It felt like everything had been achieved. Yes, achieved. He had made it happen, step by step. Why did Leo choose to accept her before the crash? If you really believe the reason from Isabella's story that he was just helping her build confidence, then Leo would have to tell you, buddy, you're overestimating me. He couldn't even be bothered to make up such a phony excuse. A man has to look out for himself, but he didn't know how to explain the complex emotions he felt back then. How could he possibly describe the mindset of a 20-year-old boy who had just survived a suicide attempt and been thrown into a high-pressure work environment? Should he talk about how, amidst the endless doubts at the lounge, he met a client who truly appreciated him? Should he talk about a poor, penny-pinching kid who suddenly moved into a mansion, attended galas, felt the roar of a sports car for the first time, wore his first tailored suit, and achieved dreams that most kids could only imagine, all while she taught him, step by step, how to navigate a higher world? Should he talk about someone who was willing to give him money while also fulfilling his every wish? Or should he talk about how, through countless cycles of their strange relationship, she never once gave up on loving him? So how do you describe a poor boy meeting a soft-hearted goddess? Brother, if you were me, maybe you would have felt inadequate too. Leo couldn't fully articulate the feeling himself. He only knew that back then, before the crash, when he was saying goodbye to everyone, the last place he went was the villa. As he stood at the gate of that massive riverfront estate, he saw the twinkling city lights and, inside the house, the soft-hearted goddess. So when he left the villa after everything was done, from Isabella's perspective, he seemed so free and light, as if a huge weight had been lifted. And it had, but it wasn't relief from leaving her. It was relief for their future reunion. Because this time, he was going to tear down everything from the past and start a new life. That car crash had nothing to do with suicide. The first time, as a naive kid beaten down by life, he had chosen to kill himself. He didn't blame himself for that. But if he let himself be beaten a second time, he wouldn't be able to call himself a man. That crash was his chance to reinvent himself, to start over. That's how a man grows. The first time he faces an unbeatable force, he sees his life as something cheap, easily discarded. He tries to end it. The second time he faces an even greater force, he uses his life as a bargaining chip, because he realizes his life is precious. So precious he could use it to win a bet against the entire Miller family. The Leo of that night was full of ambition. So when he slept with Isabella and left the villa, he had no intention of hitting it and quitting it. If he slept with her once, he was going to sleep with her again. It's just that when I stand before you again, I won't be some pathetic boy toy. A person's insecurity often stems from their first impression. Leo would never forget the first time he saw Isabella at the Cypress Lounge. That woman, so high and mighty, her blue eyes reflecting a detached indifference from a higher plane of existence. She didn't care who he was or what he did. To spare a single thought on a mortal was an insult to a goddess. As the memory of her superior air surfaced in his mind, Leo instinctively looked down. He brushed the scattered hair from her face, getting a clear view. His eyes met hers, hazy and blue, and her lips, which she was biting gently. And in those eyes, he saw desire, pain, pleasure. Isabella figured she'd bought the maid costume for nothing. There was barely any fabric to begin with, and after this man tore at it, there was even less. She felt her temperature rising, though she couldn't tell if it was from the fever or from passion. But at least he was finally getting to experience a high-temperature Isabella. The reason she was so hung up on this was because of something that had happened a long time ago. A small, insignificant story that she had remembered to this day. Leo had once said she was too cold. It was just a passing comment one day. Nothing special happened. Leo had probably forgotten it instantly. But she remembered. There was no time to think about that now. She felt like she was about to explode, a feeling of soaring through the clouds, spreading from within. She dug her nails into Leo's back, a muffled groan escaping her lips as she reached her peak. The battle was over. She lay panting on the bed, looking at the equally breathless Leo beside her. Was I hot just now, she asked. At least not cold. I'm not a corpse. How could I be cold? Isabella started to argue, then suddenly looked up at him. You remember that day too? If you mean the day we walked the dog by the river, then yes, I remember. People are often most captivating when they're not trying to be. Like Leo in that moment. He didn't know how, but fresh off their last round and just trying to catch his breath, he was suddenly pulled down again. Can we rest for a bit? No. As Isabella sat above him, looking down at that familiar face, Memories began to overlap. How could she possibly describe what she felt? She hated her family and her life in Boston, but she could never pinpoint the exact reason for her hatred. So she ran away. But was her life here really any different? No. Humans have a powerful capacity for adaptation, which also makes it incredibly difficult for a person to change on their own. So when she first walked into the Cypress Lounge, she hadn't held out much hope. Then she saw him. Her expression was cold, but she never expected that man to change her life. How do you judge a person's vitality? You see if they bring change to your life after becoming a part of it. Because being a whirlwind is a talent in itself. The change Leo brought was enormous. And so she fell for him uncontrollably. Especially during their role-playing, those unguarded moments of genuine emotion from him were like an aphrodisiac to her. She was utterly addicted, and so she wanted to conquer him. She wanted Leo to show her his true feelings always. Throughout the process, she maintained a superior kind of love, a pride that came with her station. Why shouldn't she be confident? Until that day. They had finished dinner and went to walk the dog by the river. It was Leo's idea. On that warm afternoon, she watched him playing with a group of kids, using a borrowed trading card to battle them. An unprompted question popped into her head. Why can't I be like you, she asked. Because you're too cold. It was such a simple exchange, but Isabella remembered it to this day. Because in that moment, for the first time, she felt a pang of insecurity. In the face of a person brimming with emotion, even a goddess can feel inadequate. Because humans possess so many things that gods do not. But it was precisely from that moment that the missing piece of Isabella's personality began to fall into place. Even if it hadn't been Leo, another patient professional therapist could have helped her solve her emotional detachment, taught her how to properly express love, hate, anger. But no one except Leo could make her feel insecure. Life is like the moon. A perfect, flawless disk is not true fullness. True fullness is the coexistence of light and shadow, waxing and waning. And who in the world had the right to make Isabella Vance feel insecure? Only Leo. So from that moment on, the Relationship Experience Project, the sunrise on the mountain. Every single frantic act of pursuit was built on that emotion. When she was with Leo, she could also feel small. So now, looking at his face, her traitorous tear ducts started acting up again. Leo, wrapped in a towel, checked the thermometer. Whoa, 99 degrees. He knew they shouldn't have messed around. The fever was back. If he could do it all over again, he'd probably still do it. It's easy to talk tough in the post-nut clarity. A 99-degree fever wasn't terribly serious. Leo decided to give her some fever reducer and see how she felt. He sat on the edge of the bed, gently stroking her face. Normally, Isabella wouldn't allow such a gesture, but luckily, she was asleep. In this moment, she was fragile and endearing. So damn likable. If only she could always be like this. A phone call shattered the rare tranquility. Hey, Peyton, nothing's wrong. How did you know she was sick? When Leo's phone rang, Isabella's eyes shot open a crack. She'd been faking. She snatched the phone out of his hand without even caring who was on the other end. You are not to answer other women's calls in front of me. Fine, I'll put it away. Leo, don't think for a second I will ever accept the other two. And? Are you going to break up with me again? Why should I be the one to surrender? Isabella would never surrender. No matter the odds. Everyone has a core personality, a blueprint for their survival. The player constantly seeks novelty. The gambler always bets big on a long shot. The opportunist is always cautious. Each personality type has chosen a way to engage with the world and receives feedback along that path. Isabella's core personality was to win. As long as she kept winning, her mental world would remain unshakable. If she couldn't win, she would find a way to win. That's why, from the very beginning, she never chose to leave Leo because of his philandering. Because when she met him, he was already that person. For a winner, he was the ultimate conquest. Leo looked at the warrior's glint in her eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was frustrated because he knew, starting today, there would be a lot more drama. And he couldn't stay out of it. He was amused because he realized they might be tangled up like this for the rest of their lives. But if, in the process of being entangled, they both gradually became better people, then why not? When they first met, it was a high and mighty Isabella and a timid, evasive Leo. Today, in this room, it was a vulnerable Isabella and a finally triumphant Leo. Oh, and outside the room, there was a dog with a metal bowl in its mouth. As black eyes and blue eyes met in silence, the threads of fate reconnected. In those blue eyes lay a sadness that could not be synthesized in a test tube. But when déjà vu struck again, they would, in the endless repetition of day and night, fall in love once more. Human companionship is transient, and so, love itself is a ceaseless cycle. Isabella felt like she was falling apart. She groggily climbed out of bed, fumbled for the small lamp on the nightstand, and reached for a glass of water. Her throat was sandpaper. The clock read exactly midnight. She closed her eyes and opened them again, feeling a strange sense of unreality. It was a common side effect of a high fever. The floor felt uneven, one step deep, the next shallow. She tried to recall the day's events, but it all felt like a dream. Her head was a complete fog. What did I even do today? She couldn't remember. She only remembered having a fever, being delirious. She thought she might have called some jerk. A jerk who never even showed up. He could just let me burn up for all I care. She shook her aching body, kicked off the covers, and went downstairs. She was starving. She headed to the kitchen to grab a self-heating meal pack. No, wait, you just add water. Good or not, it was fast and easy. Isabella had never told anyone this, but even she couldn't stomach her own cooking. It was a culinary crime. She had the routine down to a science, a habit born from living alone for so long. But even convenient food gets old after a while. She took one bite and pushed it aside. Sick people have no appetite. So she sat there quietly in the living room, the lights off. The huge room was utterly silent, so quiet she could hear her own breathing. The only light was the moonlight slanting through the window, illuminating her pale, weary face. In this kind of atmosphere, anyone would feel melancholy. Unfortunately, she wasn't given the space for it. You live in a giant mansion, but you're too cheap to turn on a light. The unexpected voice from the second floor made Isabella look up in surprise. A flurry of footsteps pattered down the stairs, and the living room lights flickered on, blinding her for a second. What are you eating? Smells good. Leo bounded over to the dining table, staring at her meal pack like a hungry wolf. There's more in the kitchen. Get it yourself. Isabella stared at the side of his face, completely baffled. She peeked around him. When did you get here? This morning. You've been here this whole time. Of course. Then, during the day, Isabella started to ask what happened, but Leo had already anticipated the question. He turned around, showing her the fresh scratch marks on his back. Isabella knew what had happened. So it wasn't a dream. You're not eating. I'm full. Then I'll just eat this. Leo wasn't picky. He picked up the container and started devouring it like a wild animal. Speaking of wild animals, he felt like he was forgetting something. I didn't forget anything, did I? Probably just forgot a date with some pretty girl. Isabella sniped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. If anyone else had used that tone with him, Leo would have fired back. But when Isabella did it, nice. That's an improvement. Keep it coming. He gave her a thumbs up. Compared to her old Sunder routine, sarcasm was a huge step forward. At least now he could actually sense her emotions and thoughts. You're insane. I'm going back to bed. You've been sleeping all day. How can you still be tired? Leo wiped his nose with a tissue and said in a commanding tone, Let's go for a walk. I'm not going. There's a surprise if you come. Leo threw his jacket over her silk pajamas without another word and pulled her toward the door. Why is Brutus so lethargic? Probably tired from playing, Leo said offhandedly. Isabella nodded in agreement. But in his doghouse, Brutus heard this and shot out like a bolt of lightning, frantically searching for his food bowl. He'd been carrying it around so much today that he'd forgotten where he'd left it. By the time he finally found it, they were already far down the path. Brutus stood there dumbfounded, watching their retreating figures. He'd been so well trained at the kennel that he almost never barked. But right now, whether it was instinct overcoming training or something else, he let out a single, sharp bark in their direction. Woof! Hey, Isabella, want to hear a ghost story? You think I'm afraid of ghosts? Isabella glanced at Leo as they walked through the quiet neighborhood. He must have mistaken her for some timid little girl. How do you know until you hear it? Fine, tell me. There's an old folk tale about a creature who, after years of cultivating its power, will stand on a dark road at night and ask the first person it sees, do I look more like a man or a god? I've heard this one. No matter how you answer, it's a trap, right? That's not the point. The point is, I kind of sympathize with the creature now. Why? Because the kindness or cruelty of the person it meets determines its entire future. Just like you. Leo shook his head. When all you experience is malice from people, you naturally develop a divine, detached perspective. The best example is Thanos. He wanted to wipe out half the universe because he believed humanity was inherently evil. But if you only experience the good side of things, you become more human, more compassionate. The best example is a bleeding heart idealist, someone who naively thinks everyone is good and wants to save the world. I get it, she thought, but what does that have to do with me? In the future, you need to just be yourself. Your behavior is too extreme. Leo sat down carefully on the edge of a planter, sniffling loudly. He caught her flu. When you make a mistake, you always swing to the complete opposite extreme. To achieve victory, any price is necessary. But life isn't a switch, Isabella. It's not black or white. Leo continued, that day on the mountain, when you said you'd agree to compromise if I just asked. I felt really conflicted. You were conflicted because I compromised. Because you only compromise to win. I just want to win. But there's no winning or losing in a relationship. Leo stepped in front of her, gently tipping her chin up with his hand, like a rogue cornering a maiden on the street. If you're only thinking about possessing me or defeating Evelyn and Peyton, then it's all meaningless. So I hope you stay by my side because it makes you happy. A charming smile played on Leo's lips. It was intoxicating. At least, it was to Isabella. This damn man was going to be the death of her. I never said I wasn't happy. Then just be yourself. It doesn't matter if you're a human or a goddess. What matters is being you. This was Leo's declaration. He knew Isabella would cause trouble in the future, that she'd fight with the others. It would be a headache, but he was accepting it. I accept you, so you can be yourself, and I'll deal with the consequences of any fights. Isabella, you're not going to want more tonight, are you? Do you? A rare, genuine smile melted the ice on Isabella's face. Whatever he wanted, she would give him. Not just herself, but everything she had. She would always grant his wishes. This was her life now. What did it matter if she gave it all to him? I'm happy. Come on, beautiful, let's go home and eat. I'll mix your medicine before we left. Get a good night's sleep, and you'll be back on your feet tomorrow. Leo sniffled again, shaking his head slightly. He stood under the moonlight and held out his hand to her. Isabella didn't take his hand. Instead, she silently linked her arm through his. She was suddenly reminded of how she felt when she first woke up. The darkness, the vulnerability. Being loved is like having a mountain to lean on. She swallowed the words she was about to say. There was nothing more to say. Isabella, you're not going to want more tonight, are you? Do you? A rare, genuine smile melted the ice on Isabella's face. Whatever he wanted, she would give him. Not just herself, but everything she had. She would always grant his wishes. This was her life now. What did it matter if she gave it all to him? I'm happy. Life, in the end, is mundane. Those quiet days flew by as if on fast forward. Over the past week, Leo hadn't done anything major, just daily chores. But for him, daily chores were more than enough to keep him busy. Most people have a 2-point commute, home and work. Leo had a 4-point commute, home, work, and 2 other homes. Experience is the best teacher, and Leo's experience had taught him one thing: stick to monogamy. Too many women just exhaust you. Every day, Leo would wake up at 8 at Peyton's place. Yes, he spent every night there because she made breakfast. The reason was that simple. Evelyn was a night owl. Staying at her place meant being up late. And Isabella? Forget it. Besides waiting to be fed like Brutus, she was constitutionally incapable of making a meal. So Leo stayed at Peyton's. That woman fully embodied the principle of simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. She didn't play games or vie for the alpha position. Instead, she perfected the basics, ensuring she would always have her own territory. The phrase, smart women have the best luck, was getting old. But Leo staying at Peyton's every night was something Isabella would absolutely not tolerate. The only reason she hadn't blown up yet was because Leo had given her something else to do. He had taken her to the Miller family's New Year's meeting. Leo had noticed a problem. How had Clem managed to stay with the Miller family for so long? Even through the holidays? Anyone could see she was sent from D.C. with a mission. It meant someone inside the family was backing her. Leo didn't want to play guessing games. He chose a more direct approach. He brought the big guns. He marched into the family meeting and announced, Isabella Vance is my wife, and I have officially decided to return to the Miller family with her financial backing. The statement was a bombshell, but it was music to Isabella's ears. The family elders were stunned. Isn't your fiancé Willow Shung? Where did this wife come from? But those in the know were aware that Willow had joined a convent. The official fiancé becomes a nun, and the second wife takes her place. It sounded like something out of a history book. There had to be more to the story. So the smart ones kept their mouths shut. The not-so-smart ones started to speak, but were silenced by a single look from Frank Miller. His eyes said one word: explosion. Sitting at the table, Clem was dumbfounded. She actually thought she had a chance. Leo knew what she was thinking, but he didn't have time to deal with her. So he took the path of least resistance. His subtext was clear. Still holding out hope, are you? Okay, then you can deal with her. Whoever wins, I'm with them. And who's your opponent? That blue-eyed woman over there. She's not that tough. Just 6 feet tall, half European, the top investor in Riverbend. Her dad's a big shot in Boston, and she doesn't really care about sparing people's feelings. With that done, Leo made a strategic retreat. This was the perfect job for Isabella. The Miller family's internal politics were a minefield for him. This wasn't some fantasy novel where the genius protagonist could just power up and defeat the old guard. But for Isabella, it was familiar territory. It also gave her something to focus on. Déjà vu, right? Back when he first lost his memory, he and Isabella were business partners. As for what Leo himself was doing, he dragged his tired body back to Riverbend Estates. But he didn't go to his own apartment. He went next door. His hand found a familiar doorknob, following a map drawn by memory. But a wave of hesitation washed over him. He was clearly remembering something. Memories of Summer Lynn were like a bonus level unlocking. As he remembered others, bits and pieces of his past with her were coming back too. He had come here to ask some questions. But he was suddenly hit with a wave of anxious nostalgia, the fear of returning to a place saturated with memories. He raised his hand, but couldn't bring himself to knock. Leo, a voice called out from behind him. He turned toward the sound. The voice was confusing enough, but seeing who it belonged to left him even more bewildered. Skylar.